alert reads, Minnesota shooter spotted on foot in military gear and armed near the 355 block of 200th Street. Lock your doors and shelter in place. So first and foremost, we wanted to share that with folks who may be in that area. If you know people in that area of Green Isle, make sure that they have been notified and that they are taking precautions right now. And that is about all we know for sure.
It's a very active situation down there in that Green Isle area. We do know that there's a large presence of police, have been now for several hours, if not for most of the day. And that has been what we believe to be a search area. And there were eyewitness accounts of a man in fatigues in that area right there at the original Boelter farm, where really this all began for him. Again, it's 57-year-old Vance Boelter is the man they're searching for. Our So Young Kim is also in that area tonight, covering it for us. She has some information for us. She received that alert on her phone while she was in that area. So Young, tell us what you've seen so far.
Hey guys, yeah, so we're in Green Isle near that baseball field, which is the law enforcement staging area. Over the past few hours, they were kind of searching down into Sibley County of Highway 25 earlier today. The focus of that search and that recovery was a car they believe was used by Boelter, but just about, 20 minutes ago, we received that alert where there was a Minnesota shooter spotted in the area. That address given, which was 355 block of 200th Street, we're probably about a couple miles from. It's kind of, I think I want to note that even though this main road closure, a lot of the search today was focused in a specific area near 291st Avenue off of Highway 25. That cleared several hours ago. But unlike yesterday, when a lot of the police kind of the active search for the day cleared, a lot of the neighbors told us that the staging area also kind of cleared out of law enforcement. But today it was a little bit different. Even though the main road closures have reopened for several hours now, traffic is going and flowing on Highway 25. The law enforcement presence largely remained unchanged. And then at 9 o'clock, again, about 20 minutes ago, we received that alert. I don't know how widespread that alert is, and I don't know what the radius is, but we're about 2 miles in Green Isle from that pin, that block that they're mentioning that the Minnesota shooter was spotted on foot. They've been saying this throughout this weekend. He is armed and dangerous, and he was seen not even half hour ago on foot in this area, armed and dangerous. So that's kind of the latest. This is still a developing situation, even though they've kind of cleared out that main search area that they've been at all day long. It seems like there's some developments happening right now as we speak.
It's interesting because this brings the alleged killer, Vance Boelter, back to where he would have been, the family home. It is a rural area, if you're not familiar with Green Isle there, a little southwest of the Twin Cities. It's mostly agriculture area. The search has been conducted from the air using drones as well as on ground with a relatively large different multi-force operation down there searching that area. We do not know what tipped them off to go back to that area. We do know that there were reports of him being spotted on possible trail camera as well as drones from the air earlier this evening.
Okay, we've just been told breaking. Sources tell us that Vance Boelter has been arrested and he is alive. This just coming into our newsroom right now. This is what sources are telling us, that he has been apprehended and that he is alive.
And we can presume that it is happening right there on that area that we are showing you on the map, which is where he was last spotted just minutes ago. This is an area, again, that they have had a lot of focus on throughout the last 24 hours.
Yeah. There have been so many different places, but we knew today that the focus by investigators was Sibley County. We had a press conference here around 5:30 this afternoon. A lot of questions about, well, could he be headed to the border? And while they didn't say, they kept coming back to, the BCA kept coming back to, we are heavily focused in Sibley County right now. We've seen that that is where most of the activity has been today. And then just a short time ago, we were able to confirm through sources that they were closing in, and it sounds like now that they have apprehended him.
Let's just go back a little bit for those people that may just be joining us. This was happening very early Saturday morning. Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were killed in their Brooklyn Park home. Meantime, Democratic Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette rushed to the hospital after both of them being shot multiple times, and the alleged shooter is the person that has been arrested, we're told by sources, Vance Boelter, 57 years old, from Green Isle, just moments ago.
This is, again, this is sources telling us this. We have multiple reports of this. We believe this to be true. And if it is, this is a massive relief for a lot of people who have been on edge, including those who were on a list, on a hit list that was found in the vehicle of, okay, this is a live picture of Green Isle right now. And obviously this looks more like, I think in sort of a more city, I don't know if this is the staging area, Lori, or do you know exactly where the crew is? Okay. Okay, this is the staging area in Green Isle. So this is going to be a distance from, I think Rob Olson told us the other day, it's about maybe 5 minutes or so drive from the farm where the Boelter farm. And again, we don't know that the Boelters were living there, that Vance Boelter was living there. There was the place in Minneapolis where he'd been renting that space with some roommates for quite some time. So we didn't really ever know who was at the farm at what time, but now this seems to be all coming back to that area.
But we do know that that area and that farm was very heavily searched, very heavily guarded for much of yesterday, for sure. And certainly there was a presence there throughout the day today.
Yes.
How Vance Boelter would have made his way back there, still unknown tonight. But it appears that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and I can tell you, just as we're kind of moving around here with the camera, and Lori, you'll kind of have to let us know what we're seeing here. Maybe, guys, if we can put it in the kiosk and pull it up a little bit more. The screen's a little bit small, but I can tell you that yesterday morning when we were on the air, it was probably around 9:30 or so, where we had a chopper up over the Boelter farm, and you could see the sort of almost like SWAT vehicles kind of moving in, a couple of them. And nobody, while we were up in the chopper, ever got out, but they definitely sort of surrounded the place, and then they stayed put. And then our chopper was asked to leave the area by the Department of Public Safety. At that point, we don't know what happened because we lost our aerial shot, but that was sort of the last we saw of what was going on. And then we had heard throughout the afternoon that they did an extensive search. I don't know that that area was ever officially cleared.
It was an update, too, as well, from law enforcement this afternoon in terms of their search. And there were some points in there where we were wondering, they have something, they have a plan. There's something going on here that they weren't saying. And it was still all focused in that Sibley County area still, which led us to believe that that's where they believed he was.
Yeah. I don't know. Do we want to go to Green Isle? Is there anything that we're seeing there activity-wise? Okay, Paul.
Paul, you...
Okay. Okay.
You're in Blaine today. Give us the latest from what sort of led up to where we are tonight.
All right, let's set the scene for me. I am at the Emergency Operations Center, having some return audio in my ear. So we are at the State Emergency Operations Center in the North Metro. I will say we are not getting 100% confirmation from authorities here. Of course, this is the nerve center of this investigation. There was a news conference here, around 5:30, so 4 hours ago. What happened, I'd say 15 minutes ago, I got a text from a police officer, not directly involved in this case, but connected through just law enforcement, and he texted arrested alive from people at the scene that they were using drones that would find Vance Boelter crawling in the dirt in a field, and he ultimately surrendered peacefully. So in custody, alive, in Sibley County. As you mentioned, a lot of attention of law enforcement there today with the abandoned Buick. Pieces of evidence found nearby that indicated that, yes, Boelter had been there. The cowboy hat from those suspect photos that were distributed by the FBI, by the BCA. Of course, there was a $50,000 reward offered for the capture of Vance Boelter, and he apparently has been found within, I don't know the exact distances, but found alive in close proximity to family property, his farm, if you will, down there in Sibley County near Green Isle. We are awaiting word if we will see state authorities today. Remember, it was BCA Superintendent Drew Evans who was here earlier, as well as DPS Commissioner Bob Jacobson. So again, facts continuing to unfold. We have it confirmed with our multiple sources that Vance Boelter is alive. He is in custody. And of course, we know that there are multiple warrants for his arrest, facing charges of murder and attempted murder, of course, in Hennepin County, and then a federal count, a federal warrant, a nationwide warrant for his arrest, and charges that are ready to be filed in federal court against him for basically eluding capture, eluding arrest. So we'll have to see how this criminal case plays out, this unprecedented incident in Minnesota. Really, certainly recent history, if not the state's history, the political assassination of a top lawmaker, her husband, and then, of course, the attempted murder on a DFL senator and his wife in Champlin. And, as you start piecing this all together, I can't help but think, I was in Melissa Hortman's neighborhood yesterday in the aftermath of the deadly shooting, the unthinkable act that happened there, and the fact that his Vance Boelter's, what was believed to be his security car, that fake police car, the fact that police had arrived on the doorstep at the Hortman home when they did, there was an exchange of gunfire, and that set him off on foot, leaving behind the vehicle. Was there a more elaborate plan for him from there with this manifesto with dozens of names on it? We don't know what was going through his mind, but clearly he was on foot because of that encounter at the door of the Hortmans, and now it has all led back to basically his property, as we understand it, an hour or so away. I was talking to our reporter down there, So Young. She had described there was about a 10-mile difference, I think, between where the car was abandoned and then where they were staging for this final operation. So again, awaiting official, I suppose, confirmation here at state headquarters. Remains to be seen if we still see authorities tonight. I would think they would want to get out in front of this. So we will continue to monitor the situation from here. Let me take care of my audio, and I'm happy to answer some questions for you guys.
Yeah. Paul, just one more thing here, if you can hear me. Go through again, it's really important details that you gave us right off the top on on that information that you received from a source just moments ago. He said some 15 minutes ago. Give us the details of that one more time, please.
Yeah, so again, kind of combining a couple of pieces of information from sources. There's something about a trail camera and perhaps in being located, if you will, or at least in a proximity area, that there was movement detected. But then from police, not someone directly on scene, but the law enforcement community is tight-knit. Clearly this case, while it ended in Sibley County, it's certainly in some way, shape, or form is Hennepin County based, right, with Brooklyn Park and Champlin. This officer was told that drones would find him crawling in the dirt in a field, and he would subsequently surrender peacefully. So drones, trail cams, and a peaceful surrender is the best I can tell you right now. Again, I am in the nerve center where you would think we'd hear from state authorities just as soon as possible, but right now we're going to have to go with sources on the ground, and Fox 9 is comfortable reporting that at this point.
Paul, I don't know if you can hear me. So nobody is there in that center right now, or who is there? I mean, is there any indication that there's going to be any sort of an update from officials?
We just don't know at this point. I will just tell you the setup. It's a new setup here. They have a new sort of emergency operations center that's recently opened. They have us, and I would describe it as a bullpen. We are required to stay in here, so I don't necessarily have direct access to some of the key the key figures in this investigation, so we will wait. I have had some face-to-face contact. They have said they just did not want to, in the last 5 minutes or so, confirm this information at this point. They may be wanting to gather, dot their I's, cross their T's, make sure they have everything in order from the field before they say anything. So we're at their mercy in that sense, but clearly there are other ways to get information in this day and age, and we do feel like we are in position with our sourcing on the ground there to officially tell you Vance Boelter, this wanted political assassin, wanted on attempted murder charges, he is in custody and alive tonight.
And just stand by, Paul, because obviously this will develop throughout the next minutes and hours. But we want to remind our viewers, left side of your screen is the live images of Green Isle. Right now it's frozen at this second, but this is the image that is happening right now in Green Isle. Again, that is the location where it's believed, and we have confirmation from our sources that Vance Boelter, 57 years old, accused of those horrible shootings early Saturday morning, has been arrested without incident. For whatever reason, back near the Boelter land in that sort of rural area of Green Isle, southwest of the Twin Cities. How he got back there, why he went back there, we don't know. Hopefully we will find that out. But the bottom line is, an alert went out half hour ago to anybody in that area on their cell phones to shelter in place. There was a man described as the Minnesota shooter spotted on foot in military fatigues. There are gear there in the 355 block of 200th Street. Lock your doors, shelter in place. And that was that Green Isle area. In fact, our reporters on the scene got that same alert on their phones. And just a few minutes after that, we received word that he was, as Paul just reiterated, taken into custody without incident in a field, a cornfield there near that farm or on that farm.
And we do have sources who are telling us that they were able to sort of narrow down the area because apparently Boelter popped up on a cellular game cam. And while they wouldn't share the image with us, someone with our organization did see that image and was able to take a look at the image. And so we have that. And then also just the confirmation from multiple sources, many law enforcement sources, that he was taken into custody and he is alive tonight, also in tactical gear and had some sort of a backpack on him as well.
Interesting to note as part of that, Amy, is that the law enforcement used drones from the air, and the drones from the air, we're told, are the ones that actually spotted him in real time. The trail cam would be a set image likely at a specific time, which located him, and then drones above, we're told, were able to see him in real time, making his way in those Army fatigues with a backpack, believed to be armed, through a cornfield, but a very short corn, obviously, at this time of year, so he was easy to see. And as Paul pointed out, crawling in the dirt when he was apprehended. This
incredible turn of events. You know, we get the news today that his vehicle was found in Sibley County in that area with the hat that in the picture you're looking at here on your screen on the right. That hat believed to be the hat that they found in that area as well. And yet you still kind of thought, well, it's possible that he could have fled from there because he did it once, twice. Is it possible that he could have fled again? Because what are the odds that he would go back to a place where law enforcement were already looking for him? But here we are tonight, and it looks as though he has been apprehended. Just a quick programming note for folks who were wanting to watch the race. It is on Fox 9 Plus, so if that is something that you want to watch right now, it's 9.2 on your dial, and you can watch that here. Otherwise, we're going to stay here on the air, and we're also streaming online if you want to follow along on these very latest developments. That is just the most incredible news for so many people involved, not to mention the families of those who are affected, the Hortman family, the Hoffman family, of course, the families of all of the lawmakers in Minnesota, particularly those who were also on this list tonight. Just the most incredible news.
As horrendous as that shooting was for both of those families and their loved ones on Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, and many of you have the details of how that went down, which was, as you can imagine, scary for everyone in this area. On how he is alleged to have impersonated a police officer with a vehicle that also we're being talked to right now. So
all right.
So I was interrupted by our producer to tell us that Paul Bloom has audio of the arrest.
Yeah, and he's going to just, I think, hold it. I think he has it on his phone. Yep, we're good. We're good, Lori. Just tell us when to. There we go. So, okay, Paul, tell us what you got, and let's take a listen.
Yeah, so a source of mine just texted a short video clip, runs about 12 seconds from a neighboring farm in Green Isle that picks up the bullhorn of the arrest. I'm going to play it. It's coming off my phone into the microphone. I hope our viewers can hear it. I can translate the audio on the back end, but let's share this. This would have been minutes ago as Vance Boelter was taken into custody alive.
Guys, we have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
Let's do that one more time for you all, but I understand it came across cleanly.
We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
Come to the sound of my voice. You are surrounded.
We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
Come to the sound of my voice one more time.
We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
So there you go. Just a few minutes ago, Green Isle, or Sibley County, Minnesota, I should say. I don't exactly know the township or the location there, but the bullhorn, they have an arrest warrant. It's hard to make out. It's you typically would get on your cell phone a video that's shared with you. It's grainy. Obviously I can see some authorities. It's taken from a nearby farm, but you hear their authorities in their final encounter, as we understand it, with Vance Boelter near his property, Green Isle, Minnesota, a wanted political assassin doing the unthinkable, allegedly this weekend attacking two lawmakers in their own homes, killing the Speaker Emerita and her husband, and as well as gravely injuring the Hoffmans. And so tonight in custody, alive. We thought about how this might play out, but now this heads to court. I mean, in what will be an unprecedented criminal case. Does it start in federal, state court? Obviously, so many questions still to be determined on that level. But tonight, as far as we understand it, although still waiting for an official confirmation here at the Emergency Operations Center that Vance Boelter did heed the warning and the advice or the commands of law enforcement SWAT teams down in Sibley County just minutes ago, and did surrender peacefully to authorities, again with, as my understanding, the use of drone coverage to track him in those fields or woods down there.
Hey, Paul, when you were playing that, I was just curious, the first word or so we couldn't make out. I didn't know if they were saying his name or could you make out that? I don't know if it's even important, but I was just curious at what
it was. I think it was we have an arrest warrant. I didn't necessarily hear the name. Let me play it. I can go one more time with the Amy.
It is incredible audio, by the way.
Yeah.
Guys, we have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. Guys, we have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
Yeah, something about the arrest warrant. There is a word that is cut off there, but I did pick up on that last, you're just processing this in real time on live television, but get up. So that would indicate perhaps what I heard from my sourcing, that he was on the ground in some, crawling or kind of down on the ground, that he needed to actually stand up from that position, although I don't know exactly where that recording picked up, but that could give some sort of confirmation that he was, trying to lay low or something, was down on the ground, actually needed to be stood up to have them arrested. Typically a suspect, you want them going to the ground, and that's when authorities go in. In this case, they were asking him to stand up. I would point that out, but again, not exactly sure the context of where we pick up that recording. It is just 12 seconds of what must have been a very intense moment, knowing how many, what did they say earlier today? 100 plus law enforcement were in that area surrounding the car, and SWAT teams from all across the state.
A relatively small
so there
area.
would be some serious manpower in and around. Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah.
this afternoon or I should say this evening at the update that law enforcement handed out, there was a sense that they were zoning in or narrowing in on this area. Did you get that sense as well?
We're curious if you picked up on that as well, because you know, they didn't come out and say things, but it just felt like we're getting close here.
Yeah, reading between the lines. Now, I could understand that assumption. Plus, I mean, you just think about, you lay out the facts, and, they had been in the area yesterday. They did not find that car yesterday. So clearly the car is fresh. He was in the area. They find the hat. They clearly kind of are able to start putting the dots together that he was in Sibley County in some respects very recently. They, push that amount of law enforcement, that offensive, hundreds of officers and SWAT into that area. I'm guessing they could, quickly account for vehicles that, was anything stolen. If you account for sort of the properties and then perhaps check off, that vehicles are where they should be. Now, all of a sudden, you have to start assuming he's likely on foot if he's not getting assistance. And, at that point, you probably feel like he's in this area. I will point out yesterday, though, they really were confident that they had him in that area around the Hortman house, that 3 square miles. And we would come to find out later that hours earlier he had gotten free of that zone and was in Minneapolis. So, how you read, the tea leaves and what you think and then what you're told, and you try to read between the lines there. You can kind of make of it what you will. But, they clearly kept, I know they, even after sort of freeing up that road where the car was abandoned and opening up the roadway, towing that vehicle, they remained in full force. I checked in with So Young, our colleague down there, and she had said that there was still a huge presence at the staging area. So I think they were kind of now starting to really zero in and press in on Boelter, and we've now seen in the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so, what that ended up with, which is his arrest. And I did just, my photographer is, looks like scanning some social media, and there's a photo, Ramsey County, showing his arrest. So, so there's a photo now out there
also,
that would
Paul, I don't know if
evidence.
You got word of this.
Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. So the Sheriff's Office is sharing that. So that's an official source of information there.
Also, Paul, I don't know if you heard, because you've been talking to us, but Lori just told us 10:30 news conference. So it looks like we're going to be getting some information at that time as well. And it's interesting. Go ahead.
No, it would just be at this podium behind me. We were getting some indication they were shooting for that. It wasn't sort of something that they wanted me to move on, to put out there yet. But if you are getting official word now, yes. So about 40 minutes away. I don't know what the tone will be here. Obviously, it is massive relief. I talked to you guys earlier today, about how this rippled out. Obviously, you have a family grieving, family recovering. But, as they take the next steps towards funerals and the like, police departments are guarding legislators right now, fearing this manifesto and this list. So to have him in custody is an enormous relief for many, many people around this state. But again, it does nothing to change the horrific acts of the last 48 hours. So it'll be interesting to see what tone is taken here. I would expect to see, again, similar people like the DPS commissioner, the BCA superintendent. Does the governor come back here? Right. I just don't know at this point, but we will certainly be here 40 minutes from now.
So I don't know. Our producers are working on this backstage. Obviously, a couple things we'd like to see, that Ramsey County arrest picture when we can get that. But secondly, I'm wondering if So Young Kim, who is on scene, is still available to us to discuss or at least talk about what she may have witnessed or seen or heard there on site in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so. Is that available to us or not?
It's okay. Yeah, they're trying to log in. Okay. We also have our Karen Scullen, who's out there as well with the photojournalists, and so we're going to be able to have a couple of different conversations out there from that area. It was, some sourcing that some folks here had to let us know that they were getting close, and then as soon as So Young, who is in that area, got that alert, that's when we sort of decided that we were going to get into place here just in case. So we have the 2 crews out there tonight, and then Paul Bloom, of course, is standing by for that 10:30 press conference where we do anticipate that we're going to get confirmation of everything here. And Paul was just talking about it there, sort of at the end. And one of the many tragedies here is that we have had to spend so much time talking about this man in the wake of the deaths of people who we should be, talking so much more about them and Melissa Hortman's legacy, her husband Mark, his life, and everything that he did for his family, and of course the Hoffman family and everything that they've been through. It's unfortunate that this has overshadowed all of that, and that we've had to focus so much on this manhunt.
And I will tell you anecdotally, personally, from knowing these people for as long as they've been in politics, I was up until a few hours ago in Canada, and it resonated as far up there as you can imagine. It would, obviously, a very national, international story like this, but it was shock. It was just shock that this could happen, not only at all, but in the state of Minnesota at this time in history, that something so horrific would happen in our backyard, and the rest of the world was feeling it as well.
And what made this just particularly, a lot of us have had interactions with these lawmakers. I realize not everybody at home has, so they were more humanized to us, of course, but public figures. But I think the piece of this that was so unnerving to just sort of the general public was the fact that the vulnerability of these couples and these families were in their home in the middle of the night, believing that there was a police officer who was trying to give them information. Nowadays, if an officer shows up at your door in the middle of the night, you fear the worst, and of course you're going to go to that door. And we have learned now. Police tell us, a lot of people talk about, well, is it safe to, just always call 911, and verify that if that's something that you're concerned about. It's just, there are so many layers to this that we haven't even had time to process, frankly, because we have been so focused on making sure that this man was captured and could not harm anybody else. Yeah,
so just to update those viewers and listeners that may just be joining us, may have joined us online as well, which we know you do. The man you see there on your screen right now, Vance Boelter, 57 years old, arrested in the area of Green Isle tonight, actually in the very near or on the property of the Boelter farm, which is where this search began yesterday. For him, at least a search for what would have been clues to what had happened began there at that farm. There it is on a map, so you can kind of see where we're talking about. And if the Twin Cities were on that map, it would be up to the northeast of there, not far, but far enough. And I think it's important to say the names of the people that he's alleged to have shot. Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, killed in their Brooklyn Park home. Prior to that, Democratic Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, shot in their home. We have details that Senator Hoffman was shot 9 times, hit 9 times. His wife Yvette hit 8 times, but they were rushed to the hospital. The latest information we have on the Hoffmans is they will survive. So that is the good news. All right, let's take a look. I believe we have our first image of Vance Boelter being apprehended tonight. This is from Ramsey County, an official photo here from Ramsey County showing the moments that Vance Boelter was taken into custody tonight. You can see by what he's wearing how sort of dirty he is, that he had been laying low in that field, and we know from the audio that he was told to get up, and you can see that he'd been hiding for some time. As far as what he's wearing, and we'd have to compare that with the many different sort of changes throughout since the incidents happened, the murders and the attempted murders happened on Saturday morning. But this is what he was wearing, and that is what he looks like as he was apprehended just a short time ago. And for a timing reference for our viewers out there and listeners, that this really was just moments ago. We have fortunately had a very good sourcing operation tonight, both in Green Isle, both in the city, and boy, networking that really worked out to cover this story for all of you at home. The first information we had that something was going to go down, or it appeared that something was going to go down, was about 8:45. So it was happening fast, and our sources were spot on. We had a trail cam image of him in that area, which initiated a search from the air via drone. Law enforcement descended in that area. They'd been in the area, but they went in full force, and they pinpointed him in a cornfield. And as we heard from Paul Bloom's audio just a short time ago, you could hear very clearly he was in that dirt, he was laying down, he was asked to stand up and go toward their voices. There was a warrant out for his arrest, and he did exactly that. He was arrested without incident right there in that Green Isle area, right there on the Boelter property, or very near the Boelter property, which has sort of been the focus of this investigation, probably from a, what initiated this thing from an evidence perspective. They needed to go through that property. To have him end up there is extremely interesting to law enforcement and to those of us that are covering this story.
Okay, it sounds like our Paul Bloom has some new information for us. So Paul, what have you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to, read this. So
Sure.
Forgive me for, taking eye contact away from you. I just have the state murder charges against Vance Boelter, charges of murder in the second degree with intent not premeditated, a second count of that charge, and then a couple of counts of obviously the attempted murders. But I just want to read a quick paragraph. Again, I have to process this in real time here. This is one of the paragraphs. So this is after the shooting at Melissa Hortman's house, Mark and Melissa Hortman. Quote, officers searched defendant's vehicle, registered to him. Again, that's that faux police car, the security car with the flashing lights, just abandoned in the driveway because he encountered authorities and had to run out the back door. So again, officers searched defendant's vehicle, registered to him, and located at least 3 AK-47 assault rifles, a 9mm handgun, as well as a list of names and addresses of other public officials. Officers canvassed the surrounding area and located a ballistic vest, a disassembled 9mm firearm, a mask. We know he was in that mask in one of the photographs at the door, dressed like police, and a gold police-style badge. So that was all found near the scene. Defendant is the listed purchaser for at least 4 of the recovered firearms, so he connects to the guns themselves. Additionally, investigators spoke with a person familiar with defendant who positively identified him as the man on the Champlin residence surveillance footage. So perhaps that puts that one image of him in the mask at the home of Senator Hoffman. We weren't sure if that picture had come from a Ring camera, which house, but would seem to be from these charges that it came from the Champlin home. Okay. Because defendant has not been apprehended, and this case has significant media attention. Of course, this was before what just happened tonight. Your complaint requests this warrant be sealed. So these charges were previously filed. But again, the weaponry, guys, we have to talk about that encounter, the cops checking the Hortman house. Tragically, they couldn't prevent what happened in that home in Brooklyn Park early Saturday morning. But what happens if he gets back in that car? They had that gun exchange with him on the curb. They had, clearly he has lists, he has names, he has addresses, and if he gets out of that neighborhood in that car, who knows what happens. Instead, he's on foot. It would take them, 36 hours to bring him into custody alive, but so he has been taken into custody alive. That photo, you can't see that enough. Right there, taken into custody, Sibley County there, alive. We played the audio, ordered to stand up. Surrendered peacefully, but those officers, I'll play that audio one more time as our viewers kind of tune into this breaking news. Again, I have the murder charges that are now been unsealed, but again, I lost my train of thought. Let me just go to that, audio again I was asked to play. It's going to take a second.
Paul, it's okay. We have the complaint in front of us, too.
Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
12 seconds. I'll do it again. It starts with them letting him know there's an arrest warrant. Put up your hands. Walk towards his voice. Here it goes again.
We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
One more time.
We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
So a few times there, that is audio nearby of this arrest in Sibley County field near what I understand to be property of Vance Boelter. He is in custody. That photo there, proof. I thought it was really interesting, the comment, the social media comment. The Ramsey County Sheriff's Office was the initial source where I saw that photo posted. I'd maybe like to call that up. We don't have the greatest internet signal. It might take a minute. So, but again, just to reiterate, now seeing those charges, I had heard from sourcing that he did have multiple weapons in that SUV. That was closely searched yesterday. That's where they found this so-called, manifesto. It was explained a little differently, but certainly within these charges, it reads that there were names, there was addresses, there was multiple weaponry in his vehicle, and of course he had to abandon that because he was encountered by some police officers who, when they went to Senator Hoffman's home where the initial shooting occurred early Saturday morning, it dawned on them his position as a lawmaker, a DFL party, Melissa Hortman's house, they're friends, it's less than 10 miles away. They preemptively went to the house just to do what I would call a welfare check. And when they arrive there, they see that, what they thought was a police car, and they have this encounter with the armed gunman who we now believe is Vance Boelter. There's an exchange of gunfire. He apparently runs into the house out the back, which is that Edinburgh golf course. It would take authorities, law enforcement, nearly 48 hours to finally bring this to a conclusion. But finding him alive, apparently using drones to discover him, perhaps getting help by a trail camera near his house, and then getting drones up above to look down below. And our understanding was he was crawling around in dirt, and to sort of enhance that thought is this idea in that audio. You do hear authorities tell him to stand up and walk towards their voice.
Can we put the Green Isle video up in the box now? I just want to reiterate some of what Paul mentioned right off the top, and this is where it gets to the next phase, and that is the charges that will be filed against Boelter in District Court, 4th Judicial District. This is from Hennepin County, obviously. Charge 1, second-degree murder with intent. On or about June 14th, Hennepin County, Vance Luther Boelter acting with intent to kill caused the death of victim 1. And then, there we go. Thank you for the video out of Green Isle. That is live right now, folks. And the image you see up on the top left is Vance Boelter being apprehended. Thanks to Ramsey County Police. They sent us this on their Facebook page, which we really appreciate because viewers at home are seeing the first images of an arrest right there. Count 2, secondary murder, again, on or about June 14th, acting with intent to kill, cause the death of victim 2. These are the ones, Melissa Hortman and her husband. And then there were 2 more charges, similar charges, attempted murder on those 2, second degree as well. Those are the charges. And I am reading also that it looks like a $5 million bond will be requested for condition of release on this warrant as well. So that will be next phase as we continue to follow this story. We are awaiting, our viewers should know, we are awaiting a 10:30 update from police on this where Paul Bloom is. So that is certainly going to provide a lot of information on how this thing went down. We're filling in the pieces, connecting the dots, because we had some really awesome sourcing tonight, some great sources calling into Fox 9 and put the pieces together, and it came down pretty much as it looked like it was going to.
And Randy, as I'm just reading through the statement of probable cause in real time here with you and with Paul, there have been a lot of questions from people who are, I guess, just kind of curious about what happened at the Hortman home, because we knew the officers arrived, we knew that there was an exchange, and then we knew that the suspect fled. But we have just a little bit more sort of detail here, because I think the question that is posed sometimes is, well, how did he get away? And you've got officers right there. But so I just wanted to read to you just this portion here. So let's see. Paul mentioned they proactively sent a couple of patrol officers from Brooklyn Park to the home.
As a wellness check, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, just sort of proactively saying, hey, we know that the Hortmans live in Brooklyn Park. All the PD, they know where the sort of VIPs are living in their communities. So it says when officers arrived at approximately 3:35 a.m., they saw the Ford SUV with police-style lights and immediately saw the defendant, still dressed as a police officer, shoot an adult man, referred to herein as victim 2, who we know is Mark Hortman, through the open door of the home. Police exchanged gunfire with the defendant, who fled the residence before escaping the area. Inside the residence, officers found 2 adults deceased from gunshot wounds. So we know that to be Mark Hortman and Melissa Hortman. But I think, a little bit more information there on that exchange, at what point exactly the officers arrived, how close was it? That gives us a little bit more of an indication.
And there is a gut-wrenching part of this as far as the first incident of the shooting of Senator Hoffman occurred. And I'll read that as well. Champlin officers, police officers responding to a shooting at the residence in Champlin. A 911 caller reported that a masked person had come to their door and then shot their parents, which obviously tells all of us that the children,
it was
child,
their daughter,
their daughter, was the one that had to make that 911 call and alert officers that the man had come to their door and shot her parents.
We know just from we've covered stories with Senator Hoffman and his family, and we know just from our Courtney Godfrey too that their daughter Hope has spina bifida and lived with them. I believe about 28 years old is what we were told, and so she, as we're reading now, unfortunately was, as we feared, the one who made that call to 911.
This information released moments ago because there was an arrest. It was to be sealed until that, so we are getting this information very quickly. Again, there is going to be a presser coming up here in about 20 minutes if everything stays on time. There was a very detailed list of the weapons that were found in the alleged shooter's vehicle: 3 AK-47 assault rifles, a 9mm handgun, disassembled 9mm firearm, ballistic vest, gold police-style badge. All that fits the description of a man posing as a police officer when he knocked on the doors of these 2 Minnesota politicians and their spouses.
Lori, do we have So Young, or do we have Karen? Okay. They're all right. They're just logging in here. In just about a minute, we're going to take you out live to Green Isle. I don't know if we want to pop that picture up. I know, sorry, Lori, we've got producers in the booth kind of shuffling things around back there. But okay, so here's the live picture of Green Isle. This would be not necessarily right where the farm is. You can see a little bit more of a paved road there. There's been a staging area, so I'm not sure exactly how close our crew is. I know they wouldn't have been able to get very close to the farm itself. But there was a staging area, and that's where I'm guessing this is. Yeah, they're moving around just a little bit here, where law enforcement has been staged here for the last couple of days. Yeah, that looks like that area to me. So
it actually went down very quickly when you think about it.
It did, and so we'll kind of go through some of that with So Young here, because again, if you're just joining us, I know people are kind of coming into the coverage here as we're continuing on, and we do want to remind folks. I don't know if the race is still going on, but the race that we cut into it is over. Okay, that coverage was on Fox Local. Thank you, appreciate that, or Fox Plus. So. We want to reset things just a little bit here because we have an incredible development that has come about here in the course of the last sort of 2 hours or so, hour and a half or so, Randy, in that we now have sources that have confirmed. We have now seen a photograph from Ramsey County Sheriff that Vance Boelter is in custody and he has been taken alive.
I can kind of give our viewers a rundown of how it all went down. Approximately an hour and a half ago, as Amy points out, we had tips from our sources that Vance Boelter, the suspect, alleged killer, had been spotted on a trail cam. You all know what trail cams are. They're posted out there for wildlife and other reasons, security reasons, but some resident in that area of the Boelter farm, the area there that we're talking about, just for those of it's the 355 block of 200th Street there, and the farm itself is very near there, but that area is where they picked up an image of Boelter on a trail cam. Moments later, we got word that law enforcement had also picked him up from a drone in the sky, and it was still daylight at that time, so they could clearly see a man in fatigues with a backpack, presumably armed, making his way through a cornfield. Corn is very short right now, so easy to see.
What a blessing that we have a later, sunset here to take us so late.
Yeah, and so within moments of that, we got word that there was a possible arrest without incident, and from there it has ballooned into a definite arrest of the suspect. And we saw the images there. And So Young Kim has been in that area since she started her schedule tonight, and she witnessed some of this sort of assembling of law enforcement in that area.
Yeah, so Young, kind of describe, I guess, where you are as it relates to maybe the farm or that staging area, and then talk to us about the alert that you received and about what time that was.
Yeah, we're here in Green Isle, right near the staging area. Their staging area is kind of in a parking lot near a baseball field. So we're about a couple of miles away from that alert you mentioned that came directly to my phone right around 9 o'clock. It mentioned that the Minnesota shooter was seen on foot in military gear and armed. So that was around 9 o'clock, and then, like you mentioned, a few minutes after that, we understand that he was taken in a cornfield nearby. And the last couple of days, we've been talking to neighbors in the area. I also spoke with someone on the phone who lives right in this area, right off of Highway 25. His property was searched, so authorities, to what they explained to us a few hours ago, they kind of obviously mentioned there was a car of interest that they believe Boelter was using yesterday. They found that maybe 7 miles down the road here, Highway 25. That was maybe earlier this morning. It was towed away around maybe before 4 o'clock this afternoon. So earlier this afternoon, that car was towed away. This area was still being searched. It was blocked off. This part of Highway 25 was still blocked off for several hours after that. And even after the roads reopened a few hours ago, police presence, especially in the staging area, remained largely unchanged. And we know why. They were honing in and zoning in on Boelter, but they hadn't released that publicly until we received that alert. Listening for any movements, getting any updates from law enforcement here. And now we know that they were zeroing in here and kind of staying nearby because they had reason to believe that he was still in the area. That was a big question a lot of these neighbors had. A lot of people were scared just with the law enforcement presence in the area. Authorities weren't ruling out any possibilities. So he could have been in the area. People weren't sure if he had left the state, or we know TSA, other federal agencies were also involved, keeping a watch to potentially watch that he doesn't flee the country. But now we know he really was kind of back in this area, which is near Green Isle, which we know is the address of a family home and property nearby. So everything kind of happened in this area right off of Highway 25. And we know that now he has been taken in. This staging area, in the last maybe 10 to 15 minutes, now we see some patrol cars maybe packing up for the night or moving. We kind of have seen a little bit of movement, more than we've seen throughout the night, of maybe some of these squad cars or some of these agencies, because there's so many agencies out here. Hundreds of patrol units, but multi-agency from local, county to federal. We have seen some patrol cars leave the area and leave the staging area. potentially for the night. And this is such a big relief for everyone involved, not just these communities and the neighbors we've spoken to, but Paul had mentioned, there was a hit list. And with Boelter still out there, he's a suspected, shooter in these cases. It was just a nightmare situation all weekend for some of these lawmakers that have been informed they were on the list, for these communities, knowing that a potential shooter was still armed and dangerous in their communities. This is just such a major development and a major point of relief for everyone, not just in these communities, but across the state and across the country, really.
Yeah, we are seeing what you're seeing as well. It does look like law enforcement is clearing the area. You can see Brooklyn Park there. They're the main investigator, and certainly with that investigative unit there, they have an investigative van. That is likely the end result of this apprehension of Boelter tonight, 57-year-old Vance Boelter. I also think it's important at a time like this, when we have some degree of resolution to this case. It's been more than 24 hours. People were certainly on edge in all kinds of areas. And the question remains tonight, how does he end up back in some ways where this investigation began at the family property out there near Green Isle? We don't know the answer to that. We might get an answer, but the reality is that's where this thing came to a culmination. What his choice was, what his intentions were, we do not know. We may never know about that. But I think, Amy, it's important to talk about and name the people who are alleged to have been victimized. And if we can just bring up some images of Melissa Hortman and the others, it's important that we remember what we've lost here in the state of Minnesota as a result of this horrific crime. Those 4 victims, 2 deceased and 2 badly injured in the hospital as we speak. There's Melissa and her husband Mark there. Many of you would recognize Melissa if you watch the news at all. She's on often as a prominent Democratic figure in this state.
Yeah, Speaker of the House for several years, Speaker Emerita right now, which is sort of a shared speaker role in the House. This was a photo that was taken the night before Mark and Melissa were killed. This was an annual DFL dinner, as described by many as sort of Democrat prom, if you will, and a lot of folks there who had a chance to sort of give them hugs and just sort of talk to them and catch up, not knowing that would be the last time that they would have those conversations. So that's Mark and Melissa.
Quickly about
right
Mark,
there.
too. We intended to air some sound from a friend of Mark's. His name is Ross Bennett. Obviously devastated. He lives very close to them in their neighborhood, in the Hortman neighborhood there. And he tells us that when Melissa was busy with her political work, her husband Mark would often call him just to hang out. Last time they talked to Mark was Friday, obviously just hours before this shooting. Described for us the couple outside the public eye. He described Melissa as a regular person as you could find, someone who'd been as deeply involved in politics as she was still a normal person, a regular person. He, talking about Mark, one of the most authentic people you'll ever meet. Authentic, incredibly positive. He has a smile on his face, as you can see right there. He would always, he says, light up a room. That last conversation was again on Friday. It was brief, according to Ross, and he was talking about going to a Twins game in a couple weeks. The two would often go to Target Field together for baseball games.
Yeah, and think about that family dynamic and what kind of a job she has and the support that he has been, and they have 2 children. Of course, this is State Senator John Hoffman, and I don't know that we have a picture of his wife Yvette. If we do, okay, Lori's working on that. She works for a school district in Fernbrook, and has Okay, thank you, Lori. Fernbrook Elementary in Maple Grove is where she works, and of course we've seen that GoFundMe that they've put together for her and for John as they continue to recover. We haven't gotten much detail as far as how they're doing, their conditions, other than yesterday we know that they did come out of surgery and that they're expected to survive. We haven't gotten much information on the extent of the injuries there.
We did hear.
Lori, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so that particular GoFundMe, Fernbrook PTO, I believe, is the one who put that on. Is that, what did you say? You said 90? $91,000. So that's been growing exponentially.
I can read, if you're talking about Yvette, we did get a late this evening, we did get an update from Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, please, yes.
Yeah, she tweeted out a text from Yvette. It reads in part this: our family is so, this is from Yvette, the woman you see there, the husband of John, reads in part, our family is so humbled by the love and outpouring we've received from everyone. John is enduring many surgeries right now and is closer every hour to being out of the woods. And this is the part that struck me tonight when I was reading this earlier. John took 9 bullet hits. She says, I took 8 bullet hits. And we are both incredibly lucky to be alive, and that is an understatement if ever I've heard one. And we mentioned that GoFundMe for both John and Yvette.
Yeah. John, known as
in their recovery.
Disability advocate for so many things, and we'll continue to talk about them throughout our coverage tonight, as that is so important. The latest developments, though, a very important development, are Paul Bloom. It sounds like you have a little bit more information for us.
Yeah, just a comment I wanted to pass along to our viewers. We are in the state's Emergency Operations Center in the North Metro. We have been promised a 10:30 news conference with officials that I have now confirmed will include the Brooklyn Park Police Chief. We met yesterday at the news conference, Mark Bruley. I asked if there was anything I could convey from him, and he said just that this was the largest manhunt in the state's history. 43 hours, and we had the suspect in custody, leveraged hundreds of federal, state, county, and local law enforcement, quote, historic and amazing. The thoughts of Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley, of course. It was his city where Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman were shot and killed yesterday around 3:30 in the morning. 43 hours later, Vance Boelter, the suspected gunman, political assassin, is in custody. He has been charged. We shared those charges with you that have been unsealed in Hennepin County. We also understand there are federal charges filed against him. We haven't seen that complaint yet. And I wanted to read the words. The Ramsey County Sheriff's Office was the first place we saw that photo of Boelter under arrest. Quote, the face of evil. After relentless and determined police work, the killer is now in custody, thanks to the dedication of multiple agencies working together along with support from the community. Justice now one step closer, and it's that photo of him in handcuffs. The law enforcement in those camouflage, almost military-looking fatigues, have him under arrest and in custody, and now the criminal case prosecution begins against him. We're about 5 minutes away now from what we expect to hear from all sorts of officials. There's no word yet if the governor's coming back here tonight, but certainly, as I mentioned there, the Brooklyn Park Police Chief will be here. A huge sigh of relief in that community. I am being asked to try to maybe play that community one more time. This room is getting kind of loud, but this was the audio of the arrest. 12 seconds. We played it several times for you. If you're just joining us now, it's probably worth trying again. But again, the room's gotten a lot louder in the last few minutes as media has poured in for this 10:30 news conference. Here it is. Listen closely.
Guys, we have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice. We have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
Do that one more time.
Guys, we have an arrest warrant. Take a look around. You are surrounded. Stand up with your hands empty and above your head and come to the sound of my voice.
And just having that picture on screen with it, it really puts you in that moment, in that field. Again, as we understood it, as one police source commented, that he was crawling in on the ground. He was spotted above by drone. A trail camera had picked up an image of him earlier. And again, he chose to end this peacefully and then did follow his voice, the voices, and in custody there. So again, I'm curious to see the tone that it's taken. Clearly relief. We spoke earlier in the day about, just anecdotally, another police chief in the metro who has officers outside every elected official 24 hours, each hour of the day since this manifesto, and names, even names not on that list. Police were guarding homes over the last 43 hours during this manhunt. They were responding to tips, to calls. There was 400 plus tips that came into the official BCA tip line, a $50,000 reward for the suspected gunman. And there he is on your screen, alive, under arrest, and now just minutes away from hearing sort of the official accounting from state officials who opened this emergency operations center yesterday to coordinate this search. Dozens of agencies, federal, all the alphabet soup of the federal agencies, state, local, police. But this, I know deep down, I know Mark Bruley pretty well. This was personal for Brooklyn Park, and to have this man under arrest right now means so much. And I shared his words with you a minute ago, but huge relief in that community tonight.
It sounds like we're a couple of minutes away from the press conference, and we've been told that Governor Walz will be there. We imagine that when that time, when and if it came, that Governor Walz would want to be at the forefront there to deliver that news, as he was the one who had to deliver the horrible, tragic news Saturday morning of the deaths of his friends and colleagues, and the massive loss for the state of Minnesota and for those families. And
before we get going on that update from law enforcement, I want to read a bit about what this man is facing. The complaint has been unsealed, the warrant. It was unsealed the moment he was arrested. I can tell you the counts at which he will be, at least at this juncture, charged with. Count 1 would be second-degree murder with intent. Count 2, that would be the first victim. Count 2, the second victim, second-degree murder with intent, not premeditated. You can see them on your screen. I will read them for you. Some descriptions: that on the first count on June 14th, Hennepin County, Vance Boelter, acting with the intent to kill, caused the death of victim 1. We can presume that was either Melissa or her husband Mark using a firearm. And count 2, same description, victim 2 using a firearm. Then we move on to the attempted, which was count 3. That is with the Hoffman family, Yvette and John Hoffman. And count 5, or count 4, I should say, also murder in the second degree with intent, not premeditated. Those likely might get amended to second degree, depending on how, or second degree attempted versus second degree murder. So we will watch that. And the bail as it's set right now would be set at felony level bail, $5 million.
I don't know, guys, if we want to double box here with the shot of the press conference. There we go. Yeah, just to kind of visually let people know. Yeah, let's stay on this here, because it's imminent. It's going to be happening shortly. We want to just let folks know that we're going to take this live as soon as it goes. But we did get some more information here. Of course, Paul just played I don't even know how you describe it, that hearing that audio and seeing his photo, it just...
And that audio was recorded by a neighbor in the area as this was going down. They were able to record it. I don't know how they did it, because it was so clear. They clearly were very close to where law enforcement were, recorded it on their phone, sent it to Paul. Yeah. And the audio that we've been playing is the actual arrest of Boelter there in that farm field on the Boelter property, we believe. If not on the property, very near the Boelter property in Green Isle there, just a little southwest of the Twin Cities. Again, this is a presser getting set up to give all of you at home and all of us an update on this arrest and where we go from here. Obviously, this is related, if you're just joining us here at the bottom of the hour, it's 10:30 now. This was the capture, the arrest without incident of Vance Boelter, 57 years old. He will now, as we are understanding from this complaint that's been unsealed, be charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of murder in the second degree. Attempted will likely be revised when the charges come down, as long as John Hoffman, Senator Hoffman, and his wife Yvette continue to improve.
Just doing a little bit of a mic check here and getting everything set, but yeah, we're told it's going to happen any minute. It's been such a long journey, and there's so much relief in tonight. Of course, there will be now a trial, and there will be more attention that is put on Vance Boelter, and we want to keep and we will continue to talk about the victims here, of course, those who have lost their lives, their families, the impact, the children who have been left behind. I think as parents, I think you just keep thinking about all of those who have been left behind here, particularly the children. And the one daughter, Hope, who was actually there when all of this happened. There's just so much attention that needs to be paid and so much support that needs to be given to them first and foremost. You think about sort of the next tier, which is those other folks who were on that list and what they're going through. And then, other lawmakers who may not have been on that list, but whose families are saying to them, is this worth it? Is this worth it?
Yeah, I think it gives anybody with any public persona a great deal of pause that there are people out there like this. I shared earlier, I had been in Canada up until this morning, making my way back. And the magnitude of this event resonated up there in the remote parts of Ontario. And from a personal standpoint, it just made me reflect on, I'm in a part of the country where it seems so pristine and so beautiful, yet we're reminded that these kind of things are happening all too often, right in our backyard in this particular case. And it's devastating for those people affected by it. And these people are so closely affected by it that it just breaks your heart.
Yeah. At the same time, we heard from so many of the lawmakers who said we cannot normalize this. We cannot treat this as if this is sort of a symptom of the society that we live in. This is not normal. This is evil. This is an act of evil that needs to be sort of separated from, I think, everything else, because this is different and this is evil, and we can't normalize it.
I was listening to some of the cable outlets talking about this event from afar, and one of the questions that was asked of one of the people that was being interviewed is, why do you think this would happen? And there is no why. I mean, you can't sort of reason this sort of thing as to what the reasoning behind something so horrific happens. It happens for people who are just absolutely, outside the bounds of normalcy and outside the bounds of how we all think. And this is something that's why it's so profoundly bothersome and hurtful to the people that have to see this, especially Minnesotans who know these people, both publicly and personally.
And at the same time, the lesson here, the outcome in honor of the legacy of someone like Speaker Emerita Hortman and her husband Mark is that hopefully we can do better in our tones, in our rhetoric, in our relationships with each other, especially in the political world. We do have one statement here that we can share with you.
Let's look at a statement from Senator Smith's. This is obviously on the suspect's arrest, so this statement came out just moments ago. Thank you for the incredible effort of law enforcement. Simple, to the point. Senator Tina Smith, Democrat, Minnesota. These will come in, and we will share as many of these with you as we can, both tonight and tomorrow. This is from Kelly Morrison, Democrat, Minnesota Representative Kelly Morrison. So incredibly grateful. She was here, this morning. So incredibly grateful to all of our state, local, and federal law enforcement who've been working together seamlessly and tirelessly all weekend to keep our community safe and track the assailant down. I want to say, too, this person impersonating a police officer is hurtful for every law enforcement officer out there who wears the badge, who wears the uniform, that someone would do this and stain in incredible ways the efforts, the hard work, the protectionism that they give all of us every single day, that someone would do this under the guise of a police officer.
Right, and steal the sense of security of anybody who has an officer knock at their door, and now from here on out may wonder and question. I wanted to mention to Representative Morrison, Senator Tina Smith, both we were able to confirm were on the list. Yeah. They were on this list. Representative Morrison, who is here this morning to do an interview with us, was here, understandably, with heavy security around her, and she was here, and she actually ran into our producer, Lori Fisher, and it's an emotional day for everybody, and it's Father's Day and everything, and Lori says it's okay to share it, but Lori just broke down and just started crying because I think everybody's kind of carrying it right here. And Representative Morrison went and gave her a hug. And, Lori said, I should be hugging you, but it's a time right now where we're seeing folks, just speaking with a lot of lawmakers, former lawmakers right now, they are all saying the same thing. They are checking on each other. Things have changed. Everything has changed now, and we'll see how we can do better moving forward. Again, if you're just joining us, this news conference is scheduled to begin any moment now. We know that, we have heard that the governor is going to be there to sort of lead this, and that may be just, getting him there and getting everybody situated, maybe what the delay is. But until then, just kind of keeping you, getting you caught up with what's been happening. It was shortly, 9?
Yeah, I mean, we got our
9?
first sourcing that something was happening via drone, via trail cam. That was about 8:45 this evening, and it happened very quickly after that. The presumption was that they had the suspects surrounded in an area by Green Isle, the area where the Boelter family farm is. It was either on the property, near the property. They had them pinned down. Law enforcement in great presence was there. And then a short time later, we heard, and if you haven't heard Paul Bloom's audio sent to us by one of his sources who was right there when law enforcement was arresting him, maybe we can bring that up quickly if we can. And if just let me know. Sure.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm talking to Lori now.
We may be close.
It's all good. But it basically was you could hear over the bullhorn asking him to put up his hands, walk toward the sound. There was a warrant out for his arrest. When I say his, they're talking about Vance Boelter. He was laying down in a cornfield at the time, stood up, and as we now know, walked without incident to law enforcement and surrendered.
Which is the picture you see.
And there's the picture
below.
as he was being taken into custody. Again, this is all taken place within 2 hours of right now.
It's incredible. Law enforcement, we know more than 100 officers have been in Sibley County today. The latest update we got today from BCA was about 5:30, and at that time they told us they were pretty heavily focused on Sibley County, and it looks like they might be getting ready to come up here, and we're not gonna miss a second of this. So we're gonna take you there as soon as it gets going. But it just looks like they're getting there, and there's no audio yet. So. This is getting a little bit of feedback there, guys. An incredible couple of days, starting with our own Karen Scullen, who at about 3 in the morning, Saturday morning, woke up in the middle of the night, checked her phone, and happened to see something was amiss. Something was happening. Had no idea at the time, but started just checking and making calls. And within a few hours, we had started to hear via sources of the shootings, and then a little bit later we start to hear it could be lawmakers, and then of course within a couple of hours everyone's worst fears were confirmed. And so that was sort of how it all played out on Saturday morning. The search, the scramble for them to try to secure evidence in so many different locations, the Minneapolis home that Vance Boelter had been renting with roommates, where he'd smashed out a window of a vehicle. The vehicle they found today is that from that home. I guess they'll hopefully let us know these things, but the multiple locations that these law enforcement officers have had to sort of hone in on, in addition to keeping open the idea that he maybe has fled.
Yeah, this man had a manifesto. He had a plan in place. He, as we understand it, changed clothing at one point, and he had contacted one of his roommates and said something to the effect of, "I will probably die today," whatever the reference. And this was still on Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, about 6 a.m. Saturday morning is when that text went to
and the crimes occurred around 3 a.m. So that was a few hours later. Yeah,
so it was a very rapidly unfolding event, and the news of this traveled far and wide. From a personal standpoint, I was on Lake of the Woods in Ontario, and the news of that got to everyone that I was with by about 9 o'clock Saturday morning, and it resonated throughout Canada, and really throughout the world.
And
People were awestruck that this could happen, would happen in this day and age, but I guess in some ways not surprised.
Yeah, and it was a day when, of course, we had the No Kings protests planned here that did go on in St. Paul as well as around the state. Of course, the Capitol celebrations in Washington, D.C. for the 250th birthday of the Army and President Trump's birthday, that was going on. So, you know, the eyes of the country were already sort of in that political space, but to have this sort of a crime committed, and as Governor Walz put it during his news conference, you know, politically motivated, we, I guess, have yet to kind of see what some of those other details are, other than the No Kings sort of papers that were found in the vehicle, which is why law enforcement and the governor asked people not to go to those protests. They just didn't know at that time because the suspect was still out there, and they didn't know what might happen. But you know, the journey to get here, you know, you've been covering stories, you know, a little bit longer than I have, and I don't know that I can remember another sort of not just story like this, you know, with the deaths involved, but also just this incredible work by law enforcement to hone in on him.
Really.
It has been unbelievable.
And as Paul just stated a short time ago, the largest sort of effort by law enforcement to put a net around this man, and eventually come to this arrest tonight. Yeah, and you know, the first response of people, I talked to people on the trip down from up north today. Heartbreak was the first response. Heartbreak for the Hoffman family. Here's our update there from law enforcement. They're getting set to speak at the mic. They're testing right now. Let's go ahead and listen in and see. I don't know.
Department
let's listen in.
Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson. J-A-C-O-B.
This is the list of speakers, we believe.
We can just take it live, guys. We can take it full. And let's listen in.
Drew Evans, E-V-A-N-S. After that, you'll be hearing from Brooklyn Park Police Department Chief Mark Bruley, B-R-U, Mark Bruley, and then State Patrol Colonel Geiger, G-E-I-G-E-R. I'm sorry, I'll get that for you. Lieutenant Colonel Geiger from the Minnesota State Patrol. Yep.
Yes. Jeremy. J-A-R-E-M-Y.
What was that?
Jeremy. Common spelling.
What's Bruley's last name? Please choose Mark.
Yes, Bruley.
And it's Jeremy, G-E-I-G-E-R.
G-E-I-G-E-R is last name Geiger, correct.
All right, you're just getting set for that press conference there to detail and outline the arrest tonight of the suspect, Vance Luther Boelter, 57 years old, the man alleged to have politically assassinated Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark. Attempted to kill. That's the alleged. There's the state capitol where a memorial is now growing for Melissa and her husband Mark, and of course the injuring of Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette as well. That is at our state capitol.
It is a live image right now as we take a look at that and remember the victims. And then as soon as this press conference starts, we'll go ahead and take that. But you can see. So many people leaving behind notes and flowers, candles, and you can see that photograph there of Mark and of Melissa together, and just a really poignant sight right now as we get ready to get some details here on the arrest of who police believe was at the hands of their death.
This whole thing came, as you know, Amy, and as many of our viewers know, and certainly those of us that cover the Capitol, this came just really days after a bipartisan bill was passed and signed by Governor Walz, the state budget for 2 years. This shooting, horrific political assassination as it's being described, occurred just days after that bipartisan bill was signed. The legislature left been called to a special session to finish the budget. They did that, and then just days later, this is
Here
where
we go.
are. Let's listen in to Governor Walz.
Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Boelter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt. Spent Father's Day away from their families to deliver justice for Melissa and Mark Hortman and their children who spent this Father's Day alone. To the law enforcement who stand here and the hundreds who are involved in this, the state of Minnesota owes you a deep debt of gratitude. Thank you. You ran towards the danger and you served the state of Minnesota. This is a great example of coordination and collaboration. Multiple agencies, federal, state, and local, coordinating together in a way to protect the public and close this hunt around. Multiple agencies were there as FBI laid hands on it and Minnesota State Patrol put the handcuffs on. One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota. Melissa Hortman was the core of who our values were. She had a hand in so many things that happened. The building that we stand in, she helped usher through so that we could respond from the State Emergency Operations Center with the professionalism and giving the tools necessary to law enforcement to do their job. To Melissa and Mark's family, I cannot fathom your pain and the grief that you're going through. We'll take solace in the memory and the work that Melissa did, and you can rest assured that we will put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act. State grieves with you. To John and Yvette Hoffman, the latest news is Senator Hoffman came out of his final surgery and is moving towards recovery. Yvette is healing. And I think when the story comes out, and I'd like to say on behalf of the state of Minnesota, the heroic actions by the Hoffman family and their daughter Hope saved countless lives, and we are grateful. Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will continue to investigate. We will keep you informed. We'll spare no expense and no work to make sure that that happens. A moment in this country where we watched violence erupt. This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way that we deal with our political differences. Now's the time for us to recommit to the core values of this country. And each and every one of us can do it. Talk to a neighbor rather than arguing. Debate an issue. Shake hands. Find common ground. This is who Melissa Hortman was. In the first negotiating session that I had a chance to work with her, she got all the partners in the room, and she provided each and every one of us a copy of a book called Getting to Yes. And the whole premise was debating with a sense of goodwill, a sense of trying to come to compromises that serve everyone. And because of her, we did that. Because of her, we did that year after year after year. That's the embodiment of how things are supposed to work. It's not about hatred. It's not about mean tweets. It's not about demeaning someone. It's leading with grace and compassion and vision and compromise and decency. That was taken from us in Minnesota with the murder of Speaker Hortman. So for each and every one of us to truly honor, and we will continue to honor that spirit, but we will need to do it in just more than actions in a memorial. Conducting ourselves in the spirit that Melissa Hortman did her work is what the country needs to heal. I will once again say the deep debt of gratitude. These professionals standing behind us and countless others, this was, you'll hear from them, incredibly complex. And to take this suspect in with no life of life or injuries to civilian population, and to bring him in alive so he can serve justice, which he will do in Minnesota, is an incredible thing that we are grateful for. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the professionals, starting with Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota, Bob Jacobson. Thank you.
Good evening. It's good to see you all here tonight. Thank you for coming in. My name is Bob Jacobson. I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety. And again, it's my honor to serve in that position. First of all, I want to thank all of the law enforcement agencies that have been working tirelessly over the past 2 years since the shooting at Senator Hoffman's home. The coordination between state, local, and federal law enforcement partners is the reason we are here tonight, and the suspect is in custody. Boelter exploited the trust our uniforms are meant to represent. That betrayal is deeply disturbing to those of us who wear the badge with honor and responsibility. We want to thank community members across the state for their support, for their tips, and their information. And I want to thank Governor Walz for his continued support through this very difficult time. With that, I will pass this off to Superintendent Drew Evans of the BCA. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Drew Evans. I'm Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. As was noted and was previously described, Vance Boelter was taken into custody in Sibley County. We were with you earlier today when we provided information about the manhunt and the myriad of law enforcement that have come together working in partnership so that this evil cannot be continued. The first step in a case like this is that we take him into custody, and then the work will continue and begin to make sure that we have all the evidence we need to ensure that he is held accountable for his crimes. Please bear with me, but I think it's important because it has been noted by the governor, just to give you some background on the teams that were down there, and I may even be missing some in terms of this because there were law enforcement partners, not just from the Twin Cities, but across the state of Minnesota that came together. From the Brooklyn Park Police Department, the Tri-City SWAT Team, Eagan Police Department, Burnsville Police Department, our South Metro SWAT Team, the FBI, ATF, United States Marshal Service, State Patrol, Washington County Sheriff's Office, Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, the Richfield Police Department, St. Paul Police Department, Bloomington Police Department, Sibley County. We had Riverview Medics, Green Isle Fire Department, and LifeLink in the area, in addition to Prior Lake, Crow River SWAT, and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. And again, I may have been missing, and I apologize to my partners for that we do that. I share all of that for you because that's the commitment when this sort of evil is in one of our communities, that law enforcement comes together to put all of their resources together to make sure that that person is taken into custody. That is so that people across the state of Minnesota and legislators that were targeted in these attacks and that may have been listed can breathe a sigh of relief as quickly as possible as we came together in an incredibly complex set of circumstances in that. He was arrested, as you saw earlier this evening, in the area of 35600 block of 200th Street, Green Isle. What happened in that is, as we noted, there was a manhunt going throughout the day in that area that we've discussed previously, and there was information provided that he was seen in the area. When that information was provided to the investigators that were conducting the ground search, they converged on the area with a number of SWAT teams with the assistance of the Air Wing from Minnesota State Patrol, and we'll provide a few more details about the end of coming into custody in a little bit, but he was taken into custody at that time. He is in custody, and a reminder for anybody that was not, when we've previously said that, taken into custody under a state criminal warrant. That information will be made public, if it is not already, detailing the complaint that he is charged in the cases at this time with the murders of Speaker Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman, also with the shootings in John Hoffman and Yvette Hoffman for those crimes, and will be moving forward. We are also in close contact with our federal partners, both the FBI, United States Attorney's Office, who are examining whether or not additional charges should be brought at the federal level related to this at this time. There is a lot of investigation that continues, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Bruley to provide some comments on this and the work. I just want to tell, certainly for the communities of Champlin, city of Brooklyn Park, you both have incredibly professional police departments that work day in, day out and tirelessly in this situation to bring justice and work towards that, not only for the families and the loved ones and the community that are impacted, but for the entire state of Minnesota. And our teams are incredibly proud to work alongside them and all the law enforcement partners. And so with that, I will turn it over to Chief Bruley for some comments on this, and the work will continue in partnership with them and others moving forward. Chief.
Good evening. I'm Police Chief Mark Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department. Just a few comments. One, I'm very proud to tell you that we took the suspect into custody who is responsible for this. That was within 43 hours of the incident. There's no question that this is the largest manhunt in the state's history. Just down at the scene where he was taken into custody, there was 20 different SWAT teams over an extremely large area hunting this individual down to take him into custody. I believe that the state of Minnesota and certainly the city of Brooklyn Park should be extremely proud of the police officers within the city of Brooklyn Park, but the partnerships that we had are unprecedented between the federal agents, the county, the locals, and others around. It is absolutely an incredible task what went on. Essentially, the Brooklyn Park Police Department was turned over into an operations center, and that's all that hundreds of detectives worked on tirelessly for 43 hours. So while this has come to some conclusion where we've made an arrest, there is a ton of work that needs to be done. So I encourage community members, as if there's evidence, information, or other things, please continue to feed that information to the Brooklyn Park Police Department so that we can fully investigate this and present a complete case to both the federal jurisdiction and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. With that, I'll turn it over to the State Patrol.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Geiger. I'm the Lieutenant Colonel with the Minnesota State Patrol, the Assistant Chief. The Minnesota State Patrol, along with countless other partners, were responsible for this arrest. The collaborative effort, I cannot stress enough how outstanding that was, helped ensure the suspect's arrest did not result in the injury of any law enforcement that was down there and in the area. We had special response teams on the scene near 200 streets in Sibley County. Several partner law enforcement SWAT teams positioned to form a perimeter at that point in time. The State Patrol also provided the air support that was talked about earlier today. The suspect crawled to law enforcement teams and was placed under arrest at that point in time. There was no use of force by any member of law enforcement that was out there, and the suspect was taken into custody without any use of force. Thank you.
With that, we will open it up for a few questions. Reminder, please introduce yourself, your media organization. If you have a question for one of the specific individuals, please feel free to point that out as well.
I'm Pesco with NBC News. Can I ask anyone up here who can speak to it, did the suspect make any key mistakes that you feel like led to his visual capture?
You know, the question is were there any key mistakes? We certainly, at this point, there's a lot of information we can't share right now in this. What I will tell you is there are some incredibly dedicated law enforcement personnel, criminal intelligence analysts that were out working day in, day out, working together. And what I will tell you is that that the public certainly is always of assistance to us in law enforcement, and incredibly diligent people in the area that provided us the assistance that we needed to get our teams that were already down there that last piece over. But they were certainly in the area and working diligently together on that.
One's going to be one at a time, guys.
Drew, Border Health Repair 11. Do you have any indication that anyone helped him?
The question is any indication anybody helped him? We continue to look into that. I don't have anything beyond what we shared earlier today. This investigation, as Chief Bruley noted, will be continuing to expand at this point in time to make sure that we continue to look at all angles of this. And everybody did help him. We will certainly hold them accountable for doing that in this process.
Drew, Adrian Broadus from NBC News. Can you tell us how the Hoffmans helped save lives, and what did the suspect say when he was taken into custody?
The question was how the Hoffmans to help save lives, and what he, okay, I don't have the specific, and then what did he say when he was taken into custody? I don't have the specifics on what he said when he was taken into custody. You know, we're incredibly grateful that the Hoffmans are still here with us at this point in time, and that they will be hopefully on a continued path to recovery, and that they will provide us the information. We've been able to talk to them today, and they will be providing key information to us as part of this investigation moving forward.
Sir, can I ask you, from CBS News, did the suspect have a phone with him when he was caught? Was he tracked in any way, or was it just sightings and tips?
At the end, the question was, did he have a phone with him? I don't have the specifics on everything that was with him when he was arrested at this time. I will say he was armed, and that he came when he was taken into custody, but we'll be sifting through all of that information from there.
Can you expand on weapons?
What's that?
Can you expand on
I can't on the weapons at this time, so Paul.
Fox 9, just kind of elaborating on sort of the Hoffman question. To me, the encounter at Speaker Horton's house with, I believe, the Portland Park Police, the gunfire there, the fact that you then have to abandon that vehicle with several weapons, you
Yeah.
the unsealed criminal complaint. How significant was that in preventing any further tragedy and ending it with him on the ground in Sibley County?
Yeah, the question is, again, expanding on the Hoffmans and providing addition. What I'll tell you, Chief Bruley mentioned this yesterday, and his police officers going to check proactively on Speaker Hortman's home at that time. If that had not happened, I have every confidence that this would have continued throughout the day. By his officers encountering him at that, it was forced to abandon the vehicle that he had at that time and lead to what we got to today. So by that incident occurring and the law enforcement communication that was occurring, it allowed the proactive approach that was able to get to the point where they were able to now eventually take him into custody today. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, there's a little bit of detail that the Ramsey County Sheriff has provided. I just wanted to see if we can nail it down. So it's the detail that he had provided to the Star Tribune is that for about an hour, Boelter had tried to evade arrest, and that 8 teams crawled in a ditch to try to corral him. I don't know if we have that level of detail, but additionally, because you were able to take him into custody without incident, what did your law enforcement officers say to him to warn him out and have him basically?
So the question is about the teams and then what was done to get him into custody. So we don't get into operational details for the safety of our law enforcement going forward in terms of what it is. But what I can say is the incredible teamwork that was done and the large number of law enforcement certainly put us in a position where they were able to maneuver into this area to safely put him in a place where, you know, I don't know what was going through his head and I wouldn't speculate, but they have incredibly professional teams that are trained on this and how to take somebody into custody, and they provided the commands and he gave up peacefully.
Superintendent Jonah Kaplan from WCCO and CBS News. First, if you could just speak personally for you and all your colleagues. I imagine this is a relief for a lot of you. Can you talk about what it means to you personally to have this done only a few hours ago? You weren't sure if he was in the state, let alone in the country.
Yeah, the question is the relief for all of us. I mean, the relief for us in law enforcement is we feel an incredible amount of pressure to bring a person into custody, bring safety to the community. These professionals behind me and their teams, this is what they do. This is what they get paid to do, and they're honored to do the work on behalf of Minnesotans every single day. So the relief is that we can bring that sense of relief to communities across Minnesota, legislators that were on that list, and that's what we want to do.
Matt Sepik with the New York. At what point did you get the call and from whom generally that he was in that area in the arena?
The question was on the call and when did we get it? It was happening over the time. I don't have the specific timeline, but we were alerted as soon as there was a spotting of the person in the area for all of the command staff here, and as our teams continue to work and as they worked in and honed in.
Can you speak a little more about the technology that was used? You said today earlier that you received about 400 tips.
Yeah.
We know there was surveillance footage that was used for pictures. You just mentioned someone talked about the air team. Was it a fixed wing? Was it a helicopter that was following him? What role did technology play?
Yeah, the question is what role, and I can't get into all the technology, obviously. Just some of it is that we don't share the information to make sure that we protect it so it's utilized going forward. However, I will say that both UAVs throughout the day are incredibly important to our teams on unmanned aerial vehicles that we use, that there were numerous ones out there providing that. And then our helicopter in this situation provides an incredibly important bird's eye view that also allows us special views to be able to see individuals such as infrared and others that we utilize on a regular basis. So technology in cases like this are incredible tools to be able to supplement the great hard work of all the people that were on the ground every day. Let's go here first. So right now he is being interviewed at a law enforcement facility. More information on where he will actually be ultimately will be released at a later time.
What law enforcement agency or facility?
I can't share where he is currently, but that information will be available soon.
Can you be more specific about the setting in which he was? I know there are things you can't give away, but we've seen things like trails and fields. You're talking about him crawling. What can you tell us about where he was hiding during this time?
Yeah, so where was he hiding? This is in a rural area. These are fields and different wooded settings around, and that's where he was ultimately captured. Sibley County is, a rural county in the state of Minnesota, and so it's what a lot of that streams, fields, woods, crops, and so where he was ultimately taken into custody was in a field.
Did the infrared technology help find him, identify him from here?
I don't.
The commissioner had mentioned some of that earlier. I wonder if that's something that helped.
Yes, absolutely. It assisted previously, and they were out there. The helicopter was out there before the sun went down. But after that happened, yes, that technology did come into play.
How long did you know that he was there?
I'll turn that back over to the superintendent here too, but I don't think that that information is available right now.
Mark Bruley, Police Chief, Brooklyn Park. The question is how long did we know that he was there? A vehicle that we believed that he was in was spotted many hours before and had been abandoned. An alert police officer believed that he may have seen the individual running into the woods, and that started a large-scale perimeter that we set up, or down in Sibley County set up, and we started to deploy resources, including the Brooklyn Park SWAT team, and along with many other SWAT teams, to contain an extremely large area, knowing that this is a very dangerous individual. During that, we got privy to additional information of an individual that was in the woods, and that search went on for many hours until ultimately we were able to locate him in the woods. In approximately an hour and a half or so, we were able to close the distance in with the technology and the State Patrol helicopter, and where we were able to call him out to us. Yeah, it's absolutely way too soon to say that right now. That's where the investigation, we have been just solely focused on the manhunt. And the goal is to give some calm to the situation of many individuals that were on the list that were worried about their safety. And this is a very dangerous individual for our community, and that's why so many resources and such a great collaboration came together to focus on removing him from society so that we can restore some sort of calm and bring some healing to our community and to our state. Now begins the hard work of looking at what the motive is, looking at putting this case together, and so that's yet to come.
Hey, Mark, who's the people that were on the list? What other? I know there are politicians from Wisconsin on the list. What other states were people on the list?
It was multiple states. I don't have the exhaustive list, but it was multiple states that were on there.
Do you have some states that were on the list?
We can. There's a few. I don't want to say it because it won't be exhaustive, but Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, some others that were on there. There was a variety in Nebraska, Iowa. We've had contact. What I will tell you, and I will not get into any more specifics beyond that, we are in coordination with our federal partners and our fusion centers in those states to coordinate with local law enforcement and the FBI in those states and the state fusion centers that are there to be able to provide that information and notify those individuals that they were on that list.
Are you concerned that there's other people out there that could have been working with them?
The question is, are we concerned there's other people out there that could be working with him? We will fully explore that. I've said on this, we are relatively confident, we are confident that the violence that he committed and the murders he committed and the attempted murders, that he conducted that activity alone. We will be exploring if there are any broader network. We have not uncovered any of that at this time, but that will be part of our investigation, and we will fully explore that. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks. Thank you. We can go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, there's the end of that multi-unit press conference detailing the capture and arrest in the state's largest manhunt in history for the suspect in the murders of Melissa Hortman, Representative Hortman, and her husband Mark, and State Senator John Hoffman, and the injuring of Hoffman and his wife Yvette, happening Saturday morning. Vance Luther Boelter, 57 years old. They detailed how he was spotted. It looked like an abandoned vehicle, a man heading into a woods, and that's what started today's manhunt in that specific area of Green Isle, which was a area that they had investigated and gone over with a fine-tooth comb Saturday as a result of it being in the family property.
Yeah, before we kind of get into some more of those details, and I know Paul's standing by as well, just the update that we received on Senator Hoffman and Yvette is that Senator Hoffman, of course, came out of his final surgery, is what we were told here tonight, and Yvette, I guess he characterized it as she's healing.
Yeah.
So just wanted to let folks know that that's. Oh, okay. Lori tells us that we do have a statement from the Hoffman family. Let's take a look at that as we want to try to just remember the folks who are so impacted here. But she says this is about 3 pages, but you can see there. Let's see this is from the Hoffman family. Oh, wait a second. Is this?
This is from Yvette, yeah?
Yeah, it's a little far, Lori. But first and foremost, John and I hold a deep and profound gratitude for the work of our law enforcement agencies and the public for their help in bringing the suspect to justice while diligently keeping our communities safe during this extremely difficult and senseless event. So as I'm reading this, Randy, John and I, this sounds like this is from Yvette.
Yeah.
John and I are both incredibly lucky to be alive. We continue our healing journey and are humbled by the outpouring of love and support our family has received from across the state and our nation.
And it goes on to say there is never a place for senseless political violence and loss of life. We are devastated by the loss of Melissa and Mark, and our hearts go out to all those who knew and loved them both. We are always at our best when we unite together again. That is from the Hoffman family, presumably written by Yvette, the wife of Senator John Hoffman, both recovering from multiple gunshot wounds. Senator Hoffman receiving 9 bullet hits and Yvette receiving 8 bullet hits. Amazing, and miraculously both are expected to survive.
It's amazing to hear from them tonight. This is the first time we've been able to actually hear from them, and it's wonderful to be able to get their reaction to this, and of course their daughter Hope, who was also in the home at the time and who we learned today is the one who ended up calling 911, and we just want to continue to remember them, and of course the Hortmans as well. Do we want to check in with Paul? Is he in a place to chat with us? Okay.
I think you're going to hear from Paul is that this was a law enforcement teamwork, huge amount of officers working on the capture of Luther Boelter, and so your take, basically big teamwork, biggest manhunt in Minnesota history, Paul, and they are relieved as much as we are that this man has been captured.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to unpack during that news conference as someone who jumped into coverage on this yesterday morning, reporting live outside the Hortman house, seeing that fake police squad car in that driveway. And I asked Drew Evans, I hope you heard that exchange, how important was the fact that Brooklyn Park Police went and checked the Hortman house. Tragically, they got there too late, but according to the charges, they got there as they saw this gunman, believed to be Vance Boelter, fire and kill Mark Hortman, and then he had to abandon the vehicle. He was then on foot, criminal complaint, unsealed tonight, would show there were several more guns, more ammunition, more weaponry in that security car. And the superintendent just said up there confidently that if he gets out of that neighborhood with that vehicle, with his list, his manifesto, a lot more likely would have happened along the lines of further tragedies.
Paul,
as it is, we lost Speaker Emerita. Yes, sorry, Amy.
No, go
Yes.
ahead, and I apologize for folks at home. There's a little bit of a delay here. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but at that point, I just wanted to sort of stop you and take folks through a little bit of the timeline there, because we know that after he fled that scene, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was that scene in Minneapolis where the vehicle was, where he knocked out. Can you kind of take us through that? Because that looks to be sort of where he went after he left the Brooklyn Park scene. Is that right?
Right, he would have fled on foot. He got out the back doors, went to the back of the house, went out onto Edenborough Golf Course, and then next spotted in Minneapolis. Photos of him at a business, photos of him, or video of him, we think, getting into like his vehicle, knocking out a window, maybe picking up stuff around 6 a.m. Authorities had thought they had maybe contained him to a 3-mile square. Remember, there was that shelter-in-place order up in Brooklyn Park, but he clearly got out of there and then would have picked up that vehicle that then is subsequently abandoned early today in Sibley County, that Buick. And then remarkably, we just learned that they thought a police officer spotted him running into the woods. We talked in one of our earlier live shots, didn't we, about did they have this feeling that he was close once they found the hat? The car, you wonder now if he was running into the woods and now the hat's on the ground. You start kind of potentially picking, kind of connecting some dots here. Did he take off into the woods and that's where he's been, all this time? Eventually they would obviously, it sounded like, we've reported the drone use to pinpoint his exact location. We understand a trail camera was a key helper in identifying exactly where he was in that rural area of Sibley County. And then we had the helicopter. We had not heard that before, but the State Patrol helicopter, which would make sense that was providing even further, altitudinal, perspective on the ground below, a wooded area, swampy area, maybe difficult for people on the ground to make out an individual who's crawling around in the dirt, as we've been told he was. But that is what led these SWAT teams. And it was interesting to me, again, I had to have something of a relationship with the Brooklyn Park Police Chief, Mark Bruley, but this remained their case. You heard that in his voice, and it sounded like he was proud that it was his SWAT team that was initially, everyone will agree it was a massive law enforcement team effort, but I just heard in Mark Bruley's comments and his belief that this was their case, this was their speaker, this was their hometown that was so tragically crushed by what happened early Saturday morning, what's been described as a political assassination in Melissa Hortman's home on Edenborough Golf Course yesterday morning. Now to the culmination, he is in custody, Vance Boelter. They would not say where he is being held right now. They did say law enforcement is questioning him. I thought a couple of other interesting points that we should revisit. The fact that Drew Evans, the BCA superintendent, did list several other states of who was on this manifesto. I know authorities were trying to redefine what they meant by the manifesto. It might have been ramblings, notes, thoughts. It wasn't an edict. It wasn't a directive of what he was going to do, but it sort of conveyed what he was feeling. Drew Evans listing off Wisconsin, which we had known about. Some reporting locally had said several lawmakers in Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska. So several states have been alerted to the fact that names are on that list. And it is a scary time all across the metro. I've used this anecdote today talking to a suburban police chief whose city was not immediately impacted by what took place, but he's had to put squads out in front of even people not on the list, all of his lawmakers' homes in the jurisdiction that he covers because of the concern that Boelter may be targeting other people. He was alive. He was on foot. We didn't know where he was. Tonight, authorities knew where he was. They went in, massive team effort down there, and he is now in custody. I don't see the video return right now, but we obviously have that photo of him that has been shared widely tonight. There it is. Law enforcement, SWAT teams in those military-like fatigues, the helmets, and Boelter, in custody. Superintendent Evans did not want to say what Boelter may have said upon his arrest, but he did clearly surrender peacefully.
Things,
he put his hands up. He followed the voices as he was commanded to, and he's under arrest. Yeah, Randy, sorry about that.
Just a couple things there, and you're on the same vein as I'm trying to get some more details. The question was asked a couple times if whether or not law enforcement or investigators believe that anyone helped him. That was one thing. The other thing that was addressed was whether or not federal charges would come into play, and I know that was a question that was asked early on as well. Address those for us if you can.
Yeah, let me take the federal. We understand a federal warrant was issued, a federal arrest warrant bulletin was put out nationwide out of an abundance of caution, was my understanding. I thought there were some underlying charges that went with that. The superintendent described eluding authorities, eluding prosecution as a federal offense, and that the warrant went out under that premise. He sort of backtracked, though, in his verbiage tonight, just saying the state charges are now unsealed, and now we'll consult with the feds to see if certain charges are appropriate. So I was curious about that. That's going to require a little bit more digging. But certainly the state charges commence immediately. Those were filed under seal. They were released. We had the details earlier. I don't have able to quote, but again, heavy weaponry found in his SUV, a bunch of evidence, the mask that we see, that one photo of him in that creepy old, mask and silicone-type mask, which we believe now, connecting the dots, that photo was taken outside the home of Senator Hoffman. That was dropped, the mask, the badge, trying to remember, the guns in the car. But there's the mask picture. We now know that the mask was dropped. The replica, a badge. Remember, I just remember, yesterday, Mark Bruley saying if that guy showed up in the room with law enforcement, you saw his badge, it would have looked just like mine. This guy would have looked just like law enforcement. And you think about who was in this room a moment ago and how law enforcement felt their commitment, their service was violated by this guy showing up in the dark of night to two lawmakers' home under the guise of being law enforcement, to wake those folks up and then to attempt to assassinate and clearly in the Hortman house assassinate, a husband and wife, a lawmaker. This meant so much to law enforcement. I told you earlier I was kind of curious the tone it would take, and I think you saw, what it was. Clearly, from the governor's emotion, still this can't happen again. The loss of a dear friend, a glass-breaking Speaker of the House and Melissa Hortman, to the law enforcement, to Brooklyn Pride, taking pride that this was their case, their SWAT team. They were going to get this guy today. And here we are 43 hours later, the state's largest manhunt in its history, according to Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley.
And Paul, just up on the screen there a moment ago, we just had a list of sort of the arsenal, some of the weapons that were found in his vehicle. And, we talk about the question you asked, which I think a lot of us who've been following this since the beginning have really looked at that pivotal moment when that Brooklyn Park sergeant in the middle of the night has that feeling and says, we need to proactively send a couple of officers to the Hortman home. And that timing, and while, you can look at it and say, well, they got there a little late. Of course, yes, there's that. And also, wow, look at what they thwarted here. And the fact that it completely changed, we can only assume completely changed the course of what the suspect was going to do that day. Talk a little bit about, too, the fact that, 43 hours, Chief Bruley said, 43 hours. The fact that everything that has happened in the last 43 hours, and there was no additional loss of life, public, law enforcement, it is just incredible given all the unknowns with this suspect.
And worth pointing out, Amy, we learned in this news conference when he was arrested, he was armed. So he still had weaponry with him. They did not elaborate on what he was found with, but he clearly kept some type of weaponry as he's on the run, on foot. But yes, the superintendent of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension was crystal clear to my question that more tragedy would have unfolded had those Brooklyn Park police officers not encountered a Boelter on the front stoop of the Hortman home. Tragic, the losses that occurred that day, but the lives that were saved by that action, putting him on foot. My perception, as I'm just kind of processing it through my head and, trying to make sense of what could have been, I was thinking if he gets into that vehicle, maybe he's long gone by that point. He's no longer on foot. He doesn't have to go back to familiar turf, right? He goes back to the room he rented, we now know, in Minneapolis. He came back towards Sibley County, where we know he has property. I wanted to ask how close the arrest was to his actual property. I didn't get a chance to do that. I would be curious to know that. But my thought was, without the vehicle, he now had no immediate plan to get away. But in hindsight, now that we see what was found in that SUV, I believe, and it doesn't matter what I believe, the superintendent said it, the BCA, the lead law enforcement guy in this state said, no doubt further tragedy would have had unfolded if not for that encounter on the front stoop of the Hortman home early yesterday morning.
Paul, it's been described as a political assassination by some, including us, and I think that's probably fairly safe in this situation, but it does beg the question, motive in a situation like that. That was addressed tonight, but it was brushed off in that they said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're working hard at looking at what the motive may have been. I assume that the manifesto, or what's described as a manifesto, would lend clue to that.
Yeah, the manifesto will be key. What do those readings say? The scrawlings, I think perhaps more importantly, I don't know the state of mind of this man at this point, but does he open up to authorities? There was sort of, as you think about the different scenarios, how this plays out, I think there probably are some people who are surprised he was taken alive and that he is in custody. And now he has the ability to speak out. I mean, I hate to bring up connecting this to anything else, but I think of the Mangione, the United Healthcare, killing assassination that so touched Minnesota as well. When someone is taken alive and has a political, message to share, what comes out, what do we hear, what does he say in court, what does he say when we see him next? I mean, here's a guy now, this begins a criminal process. Within 48 hours, he's going to have to make a first criminal court appearance. So I will be very curious to hear what he says. And then, yes, how the manifesto, again, it was described a little differently, more notes, more thinking, more thoughts. Why did he target these two lawmakers in particular, Champlin, Brooklyn Park? I mean, he's, as far as we know, he lives in Green Isle. He rents in Minneapolis. He's on this nonpartisan, board with the state of Minnesota. Where does, you need to start putting the pieces together. And I'm not an expert at this point on the man's life, but suffice to say, now that he's taken alive, you would certainly think we might get more insights into what he was thinking, why he tried to carry this out. And again, there are more names on this list, more states. Has he been in contact with other people? I'm curious to see how this unravels beyond just him. But as you heard authorities say tonight, right now, he is the one responsible for these just heinous attacks here in our home state.
Paul, I was wondering if anybody would ask, and maybe I guess it's not as relevant at this moment, but his family, wife, and we understand children as well, and they did come into play. At least the wife did come into play in some of this. Do you want to kind of go over that and what we know about what happened?
Yeah, we were able to ask Superintendent Evans about the wife earlier today. So yesterday morning, mid to late morning, the shelter-in-place order would have been in effect in Brooklyn Park. Up in Onamia, so Mille Lacs County, total other direction, straight north up towards Lake Mille Lacs. Mille Lacs County, another county, Randy would probably know a little better, but probably about an hour away from the metro in that direction. There is a traffic stop conducted. And I'm going to use the term detained. There were no arrests, but they stopped a vehicle that had Vance Boelter's wife and several other family members. We have confirmed that there were passports, there was cash in that car. Others have reported there was some weaponry in there. We know they held on to those folks, the wife, perhaps kids, but definitely loved ones, and questioned them, searched the vehicle. They felt the family was cooperative. so cooperative to the point that they ended up releasing them, that they were allowed to go on their way. And there were a lot of questions. I had them earlier today. Like, why not hold, family, even if, there's no direct connection, but as the superintendent said at that point, they cooperated, and in these times, people may act alone. I also think about that close friend at the Minneapolis, rooming house where he rented a room. They were reading text messages yesterday, sort of absolving them of any involvement. There was definitely, the authorities did confirm there was contact being made between him and other people close to him. They didn't necessarily feel they were being material aid, that they weren't necessarily helping him evade police or evade arrest. But yeah, that wife, I'd be curious to know more, and perhaps we'll learn more in the coming days. But in the end, there was a traffic stop conducted. And they just felt the family had cooperated enough to the point where they were allowed to continue on their own. Perhaps an indication, if we read it, for what it is, that this man acted alone, at least as it in relation to his own family.
Yeah. Paul, the Governor Walz was the first to speak tonight. His message was fairly clear that, and I'll just quote one thing that he said. Melissa was the core of who we are in Minnesota. He was referencing her ability to bring, politically speaking, two sides together to just even discuss what can be a very diametrically opposed political environment at the state legislature at times. And he said that we should commit ourselves to the core value of who we are in this country and use that to discuss politics and discuss issues and then shake hands afterward. That was his description of who Melissa was. You have been around her as well. You've covered politics as much as any of us have. Give us some insight as to what he was sort of reading for the public there to take in.
Yeah. I doubt we could turn around the tweet he put out this morning. I forget the exact verbiage he used in the tweet with her. It looked like, I don't know, signing legislation, maybe signing something in the Capitol. Do you remember, Amy, what he wrote? But
I'm pulling
behemoth.
it up.
Shattered glasses. Okay, yeah.
We'll get it up on the screen.
But no,
in a second,
she took a crushing vote 1 week ago to pass the bipartisan budget, a state that is deeply divided. And I've kind of moved away from covering the Capitol, but our legislature is one of one or two in the country that has a divided legislature. And while it took overtime, we certainly got to a balanced budget this year, thanks certainly in large part to the leaders in both parties. And you could tell yesterday the emotion he shared yesterday. And I remember Corin Hoggard, my Capitol colleague, was here yesterday, and he remarked that as soon as Walz was done speaking, emotional, just crushed, having just learned of the assassination of his clearly a dear friend, he left the room. And I will point out that Walz did leave the room as soon as he finished his remarks here tonight. But no, clearly he is deeply touched. Yes, that's the tweet, Governor Walz. I probably can't read it, Amy. You'll probably have to do it. But
it says the most consequential speaker in state history, and that was really echoed yesterday by everyone we spoke with. That she really, her footprint will be left on the state of Minnesota, policies, people, the relationships for forever. I mean, just that much of an impact.
She certainly is not an unknown. I mean, any given night on our air here on Fox 9, you would have heard from her or have seen her during the legislative process. She was front and center for several years now, in fact. Yeah. So the loss of her from Governor Walz's perspective and many, many others, regardless of your political affiliation in this state, is deeply felt by all of those. And I think that's kind of what the governor was trying to relay to people, that enough is enough on the political debate that goes far beyond what we as Minnesotans and certainly as we as U.S. citizens should tolerate, and that this sort of violence directed toward political ideals or political moves is unacceptable.
Yeah, Paul may want to answer that. I know we have a little lag here.
No, I mean, he said it. He said it very clearly. And again, I just, the one thing that kind of sort of comes into my mind, she takes this tough vote. Her caucus, she made clear, was not happy with her. But then where was she Friday night? Back at a big DFL, celebration event. everybody speaking about how special it was to have her there, you know, connecting with the lawmakers that we interviewed throughout all of yesterday. You know, she was huge in that party, a party leader. And yeah, no, Wall says this has to end here. The political rhetoric, yeah, he was overwhelmed by it, and you know, we shall see what comes from it. If this is a moment in time that changes anything, obviously remains to be seen. Clearly, the security question will ratchet up. I mean, I think about these last couple of days while squads are outside every lawmaker's home across the state. I mean, that's crazy. You know, we don't have metal detectors at this point in the Capitol. Does that, you know, become a debate?
He mentioned the prevalence of political mean tweets,
we go
Paul.
in that don't. Yeah.
He mentioned, as I said,
perhaps you should speak. Yeah.
Yeah, he said, you know, the political mean tweets that we see during legislative session or anytime, just unacceptable and unwarranted and need to end, because it can create an atmosphere where horrible things can happen. And nobody is saying that this is how it went down, but it certainly is it's certainly an element in today's political world.
Yeah. It is a reality.
Yeah.
Paul, if I could, you know, there have been so many questions that people have had about this manhunt, and I think at the front of a lot of people's minds was, of course, law enforcement, but just out of curiosity, people kept saying, how is he getting around? How, you know, was this something that was so coordinated that there were other people who had cars here and there? But if you could just kind of walk us through the path and what we know about the means to each of those locations, that might be really helpful here as we're trying to understand.
Yeah, and clearly I will only know what I know. But obviously he abandons the security vehicle, that police-looking vehicle that is in the Hortman driveway that he's confronted by gunfire at the front door by Brooklyn Park Police. There's that car. That's the security car. That's where they find the guns. That's where they find his manifesto. It looks like a squad car. But he abandons that. He's now on foot. So as we piece this together, I think he gets into Minneapolis, right? 6 a.m. as we understand it. He goes to that rooming house, and perhaps he gets one of his vehicles, because this Buick that would eventually be abandoned early this morning in Sibley County is connected to him. So, I mean, where he is in the sort of that 12-hour period, I don't know if we've gotten a clearer picture from law enforcement. But I mean, I will point out, you know, he would have had time in that second vehicle that he would abandon in Sibley County. He would have had time to drive away and not kind of drive back towards property of his. I am curious, you know, again, what the mindset was there. You know, you'd be long gone, right? The question was asked earlier today, do you think he's on his way to Canada? Like, well, you know, it just seems odd in terms of if you're thinking, you know, I hate to say it, like a potential madman, like, you know, get out of here. But, you know, he stayed close, and, you know, the car's abandoned in Sibley County. Now we have come to learn that a police officer might have seen the abandoned car and even seen him on foot running into the woods. So now he's on foot in this area. I know one of the other reporters had asked about reports that he was on a bicycle at some point in that rural area of Sibley County. Maybe he got on one of those. But clearly now that this day with this abandoned car being found at the time he did, and likely an eyeball spotting him, he would have been on foot or something similar, whether it's a bike or not, but in that area for, you know, what would have amounted to, you know, 12, 18 hours down there in Sibley County. But yeah, you know, from the security car to the car it is Minneapolis, you know, rooming house to being abandoned in Sibley County and then on foot. I mean, that's my quick understanding. Maybe there's another vehicle in there, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know our Mary McGuire, who was at the Minneapolis location most of yesterday, who spoke with the roommate there, said it was she thought about a 7-mile stretch between Brooklyn Park and this home. Yeah, this is the Minneapolis home right here, where we're told that Vance Boelter, by the roommate, rented a room. In fact, that front room right there that you're seeing is the room that he rented, and the law enforcement had to go in and you know, sort of bat around their way into that home. And this also is where, Paul, you talk about the communication. We don't know how much communication there was between Vance Boelter and anyone except for the communication that he apparently had with that roommate.
Yeah, and if we can go back to that Sibley County video just quick, Lori. Paul was describing that scene earlier as well, and the one point that they brought out tonight, and this, you're going to see this road, this gravel road, and down there in the distance you'll see the car abandoned, and he allegedly ran into that woods. He was picked up, we believe, by our sources by a trail camera. That was the first sign that he had been identified in that area on foot. So it's that area you're seeing right there. The abandoned vehicle ran. He was spotted by someone. Law enforcement was described by law enforcement, a man running into that woods. We found out later tonight that it was, through our sourcing, that it was he was picked up on a trail cam, and then subsequently after that picked up on drone footage in real-time video as they closed in on him.
Yeah. And, you know, what's so interesting is, you know, we're following all of this, and we're following each development and where law enforcement is, and now they're moving here to search and there. But this is someone who is on the run and, you know, is not privy probably to the same information and is just kind of doing his thing. But to Paul's point, the fact that after the crimes, he's back in a familiar location, and then apparently, according to, you know, sort of the timeline here that we've been given by law enforcement, at some point leaves there in a familiar vehicle, and then goes, you know, ends up back in a familiar spot, is just sort of mind-boggling.
And I think as we discussed this tonight before we hit the air, I think many were surprised that he went back, obviously for obvious reason, that he would go back to that area. Then as the night wore on, Paul, we were surprised also that he surrendered without incident. I think some people, the presumption was that if he's going back to this area, the intent might have been something more nefarious than surrendering peacefully to law enforcement.
Yeah, we just obviously don't know what was going through his mind. There is that arrest photo that I'm sure will be on a lot of newspapers in the morning, front pages. But yes, he was surrounded. I mean, the manpower down there. What did Bruley say? Chief Bruley, I think they had 20 full SWAT teams on location. I had seen earlier in the day when all of the manpower was heading down there. I'm going to forget the verbiage I had seen, but kind of talking about like a defensive tactic. And I'm like, that's a show of force going on the offensive. Like they saturated that area with law enforcement, heavy, you know, weaponry, the presence of the manpower, 100 plus men and women in uniform are down there, 20 SWAT teams. And, you know, I don't know if he saw the response and thought it best to surrender. But you know, we listened into the audio a little earlier. You know, they said they had an arrest warrant. They asked him to put up his hands. They asked him to stand up and walk towards their voice. And he clearly did that. And there, his arrest in that photograph.
All right, Paul, we're gonna wrap you up here for just stand by for us, though. We do appreciate you being there. A lot of information thrown at you tonight, as well as the general public. So thank you for going through that with us. A lot of details. Obviously, this stuff will be boiled down and gone through over the next several hours. We'll have much more detail coming up tomorrow. Appreciate you being there, Paul.
At the scene
near
the farm where all of this happened is our Karen Scullin. Karen, before we kind of talk about tonight, I just want to reiterate the fact that you actually I got a call about 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. You were up for whatever reason in the middle of the night that night and happened to check a phone, and that's sort of what got the ball rolling for all of us to kind of get into place, because you kind of had the sense that something was starting to happen.
Yeah, I make it a rule to not check my phone in the middle of the night if I wake up, but I did. I don't know why I did, yes, and started getting texts and things like that. So it's been an intense couple of days for sure. And, you know, it was interesting. We arrived sort of right after he was captured. Of course, we have another crew here in the area. And the officers and the police and the SWAT teams were already kind of, some were leaving and some were still around here. But clearly there was a sense of pride and a sense of gratitude and relief that this guy was in fact now in custody. Now we're outside the Boelter home, which has been the focus of a lot of searching over the last couple of days. Obviously quiet right now, a few lights on there. This is about a mile maybe from where he was captured in that field by all the officers and the SWAT teams and such. So we're about a mile from there. Interesting thing, after he was captured, I happened to come upon the home here, and there was a bunch of SWAT teams and officers pulling into the house. I kind of wondered why. I really don't know why, since he had been captured. Maybe they needed to retrieve something from the home, or he let them know there was something inside there. I'm not quite sure. We did speak to a neighbor who lives right across the street here, and his name was Neil Kinzer, and he said they'd lived here for about a year and a half, and he didn't know Vance at all, but except for waving and kind of the mailbox type thing. But he certainly was glad that he had been captured. He was never really scared, but certainly a lot of activity all around his home for the last couple of days was making him uneasy, and he was kind of, I think, getting a little bit tired of it. But he had heard, that he was probably surrounded and about to be brought into custody, because he heard a lot of activity in the area here. So he was glad it was over, and I'd say they cleared out about an hour ago. So definitely calm around here now, and certainly a sense of relief. I find it interesting too, there was a lot of media around here, and when I pulled up, there was a crew from Sweden here, and I thought, wow, this case, it's really not just impacting Minnesota and Minneapolis, but not only the nation, but the world. To see a crew from Sweden here, I didn't have a chance to ask them why, why make the trip here for this story. We were both kind of run in the opposite directions, but interesting the impact this has really had on so many people all around the world. It's just been really incredible, I think, for all of us. For police officers and everyone involved in this, not even those actively involved, but those who were watching the developments and kind of watching, the case over the last couple of days, not getting any sleep. The law enforcement, I see them on Facebook now kind of thanking their teams. I know Chaska was involved, Hennepin County was involved. I see them thanking for their teams, for their efforts, because it really was just such this multi-agency, not only local, but regional, federal, on every level, really putting so much effort, not only physically, but I think their hearts were in it, all the way through. And of course, everyone now breathing a sigh of relief that this guy is in jail tonight.
Yeah, described, Karen, as the largest manhunt in Minnesota history, and tonight we can see why. We appreciate that teamwork on incidents like this.
And Karen, I don't know if you know this and talking with the neighbor or not, but I think there are questions around that home. As you and I were on the air yesterday morning, it wasn't clear if he was living there, if his family was there with him. And then there's that Minneapolis residence where he was renting. Do we know, was this the family home, or how much do we know about that?
That's a good question. He just mentioned that Vance had lived there for about a year and a half. I didn't ask any further questions about if the entire family was living there. So he said about a year and a half, and never any problems with him, quiet, that kind of thing, just the high and by type stuff with the neighbor. Obviously surprised and shocked at everything that has unfolded, though, in this area and with his neighbor. So again, breathing a sigh of relief tonight.
Karen, one quick thing, because you brought it up, and that is the proximity to the arrest to the actual Boelter family farm there. Is it the same was he on the farm property when he was arrested? Could you tell? You mentioned a mile away. That tells me it probably wasn't necessarily right on the family property. Is that correct?
Certainly not right in the vicinity. I don't know how much land they owned. So it was quite a ways away in a farm field. There's a lot of fields here. I mean, it's basically all farming out here. I can tell you the amount of law enforcement that was present was incredible. I believe we're showing you chopper video of the house right now. And, just really a focus of this search for the last couple of days. And, interesting, earlier today, I was thinking when, the BCA and they were giving their update that, really they hadn't found him, and there was just, a little bit of this and that found out here. I thought that the sort of feeling was that he had left the area. And so to hear that he was actually around here still and captured certainly surprised me and some of the crews out here. But, law enforcement all of a sudden, sprung into action right around, I guess maybe it was around 9 o'clock or so. So there was all of a sudden a lot of movement and people kind of going crazy. So it was something.
All right, Karen, we appreciate you being there. Appreciate your diligence with this. I know it's been a long 36 hours, so thank you for being there tonight for us as well. Appreciate it.
I wonder, Lori, if we should just bring back up that the statement from what appears to be Yvette Hoffman, if we could. Okay, she's going to pull that back up for us because again, this is.
This came in tonight.
It did. It came in tonight. And so just really wanted to sort of read through this again. This is the first time we are hearing from the Hoffman family, and it seems specifically from Yvette Hoffman. First and foremost, John and I hold a deep and profound gratitude for the work of our law enforcement agencies and the public for their help in bringing the suspect to justice while diligently keeping our communities safe during this extremely difficult and senseless event.
Goes on to say, John and I are both, obviously Yvette wrote this, John and I are both incredibly lucky to be alive. We continue our healing journey and are humbled by the outpouring of love and support. I will say, just to interject, both were shot multiple times. John shot 9 times and Yvette shot 8 times. So their wounds were incredible, and the fact that they're still with us is miraculous in many ways. She goes on to say, we're humbled by the outpouring of love and support our family has received from across the state and our nation.
Yeah, and I think there's one more here. Yeah, there is never a place for senseless political violence and loss of life. We are devastated by the loss of Melissa and Mark, and our hearts go out to all those who knew and loved them both. We are always at our best when we unite together. And we're going to put up their pictures here as well. Also learning tonight that their daughter, who we understand is 28 years old, Hope. We've done some stories and things where she's been mentioned, and John, fierce advocate for those with disabilities. Hope has spina bifida, and so she's sort of been at the forefront of his inspiration to be such an advocate at the Capitol, as he was for so many. Different issues that were so important to him, and the latest tonight is that he has had his final surgery, according to officials, and he is recovering. And then Yvette, the way it was phrased is that Yvette is healing, and the fact that we were able to get the statement from her tonight is, I think, brings a lot of comfort to a lot of people.
You mentioned Hope. She was actually the one who had to call 911 saying that her parents had been shot. We found that out in the statement of probable cause. Statement on suspect's arrest. This is from Minnesota Senate DFL. The arrest of the suspected shooter brings relief to our entire state, yet this unimaginable tragedy will change us forever, no doubt about that. Our deepest thanks go to the first responders, law enforcement officials, and medical providers across the state for their life-saving and tireless work. That was sort of the theme of much of what we heard tonight from law enforcement. This was a team effort, and when they say team, the largest manhunt in Minnesota history to arrest Vance Boelter. One more thing, I think we should clean up some details as we move this story forward before we wrap it up tonight, and that is what charges now face Boelter. There are 4 counts. I will briefly read them for you. I'll bring them up on the screen if I can. Count 1, it's the charge murder in the 2nd degree with intent, not premeditated. I'm not sure about that one. Some of these charges could change, and the charge description, I'll only read this once because it's similar in each one. It says, on or about June 14th in Hennepin County, Minnesota, Vance Boelter, acting with the intent to kill, caused the death of victim 1. We can presume victim 1 was either Representative Melissa Hortman or her husband, Mark. And then in count 2, same 2nd degree murder with the intent, not premeditated, same description, victim 2. Then we move on to count 3. This would be the attempted murder charges in the 2nd degree. They listed as murder. That may get amended, but right now it's listed as murder in the 2nd degree. Attempted to cause the death of victim 3 using a firearm. Same with count 4. Murder attempted, caused the death of victim 4. Those were, of course, John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, who are, as Amy just pointed out, recovering tonight, thankfully, from multiple gunshot wounds.
Yeah. As we're sort of, wrapping things up here for the evening, and I just wanted to also just spend just a short amount of time on a couple of things because there's been so much misinformation that has been put out there, as is normal in this time when people are trying to get information as quickly as possible and then things spin. But I just wanted to bring up a couple that are sort of coming to the forefront more and more and more. First and foremost, people are talking about, the manifesto. We were told today to kind of reel back on that word manifesto, because what it really is a list and then some ramblings, in a notebook. They wanted to make sure, law enforcement, that we're not depicting it as this sort of like ideological, well-formed, formal document, but rather, a list and some different ramblings. Also, something that's been brought up a lot in the last, 40 some hours is Vance Boelter's role as a member of a workforce development advisory board, and being appointed by Governor Walz, first Governor Dayton, and then reappointed by Governor Walz. It is an appointment. You were appointed. This is a bipartisan council. And it's really important to sort of point that out, that these are a lot of times civilians, business owners, workforce development. There are many different members of the community who are a part of this, and you oftentimes don't even have access to sort of, the governor or whomever. You're just sort of an advisory board. And then just one other thing that is sort of unfortunate here that it's important to bring up. We have an article on our website, but there happens to be a woman named Jennifer Boelter who works in St. Cloud at a hospital there. She shares the same name as the wife of Vance Boelter, and Central Care again confirmed to us today. This is not. She has nothing to do with this. Not the same family. There's no affiliation here. But I just kind of wanted to point out a couple of the things that we know to be facts, that as you're on social media, in the coming days, that you can kind of start to separate some of the fact from rumor and speculation.
Part of it is to remove the political rhetoric that will undoubtedly and does undoubtedly surround something like this. We do not know the political affiliation, at least as it's relative to this story. A lot of presumptions being thrown about in social media on this. We don't have the answer to that, and I don't know that we will. And it'll be part of the investigation, as pointed out tonight by law enforcement and the BCA, that there's a lot to dig into with this list, and as you point out, the ramblings of this man as they work through the investigation, and also to work through whether or not federal charges come into play in a situation like this.
Time to take just a deep breath. It's been an incredible 43 hours. Congratulations to law enforcement. We're so grateful for their sacrifices and putting their lives on the line to protect our communities. It's been a really tough couple of days for a lot of people, specifically those who have been impacted by losing loved ones and going through this, and then those who were on that list. It's just been
a couple things we want to end this broadcast with, and that is the governor had some things to say about Melissa Hortman. I think it's important to reiterate those, listen to the governor, and then, as you can imagine, there is a growing memorial at the state capitol to remember what happened and to remember the contributions of those people in our state and in our lives. So I'm going to send you to the governor's comments just really about an hour or so ago. And no, I guess we don't.
You know what I think we should do? Let's end it here. I think we have some video we want to show of the Capitol, but we just want to say, say Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman. Our thoughts are with their children. They have 2 children, and then John Hoffman and Yvette Hoffman, wishing them the best in their recovery, and our thoughts, our prayers are with their daughter Hope as well, as she's been through so much, and I think we can just kind of leave you with this shot here.
Know that he's been arrested. Vance Luther Boelter's been arrested, and the rest will lie in the hands of the criminal justice system, and details will come out as the days tick off.